You know, it's in you, senior, or senior.
It's all for the camera. What? Yeah, I just threw my finger from the ball. Yeah. Major.
Today.
What's up to you? Well, the camera that's on is actually one there, so, yeah. Very well.
All right, thank you.
And it should be that, it shouldn't be that long, but we'll get Sharon on first and then.
I don't maybe I don't think there is. Am I okay? Do you? I just need to wait.
Honestly.
Yeah. So you can do all this and get here and out.
I got it.
Okay.
Busy yesterday, but I didn't.
Did you hear me? All right, but you can literally, you can go through the summary.
What's that?
You don't.
McGill?
I'm just gonna start.
You know what?
I just called, see, they really want me to see.
Okay, I'm not gonna explain
They
it.
really don't.
Say it.
So this is that-
Isn't that what
You can make the phone
I
call.
mean, if they're here, yes, but.
we're getting new partners, right?
Short-sighted.
So everything is
I
like,
only
we have
say
people on vacation.
Pursuant to Ohio.
Yes.
Sanitary engineer.
Right there.
I don't get it.
How about you?
I'm gonna go.
Just here from
Liberty.
support.
No, so that I can always coach.
You said you wanted to explain that.
The PI.
So.
Well, they got the other company. Gorilla has. Right next to.
That's why we need to talk.
All right, everyone.
Good talking to you.
We're gonna start.
Yes, they was mad.
I just want to
Everybody's happy, we do need to start the meeting.
Sunshine.
Hey, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands, right? Okay, so we're gonna start the meeting. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Mr. Malloy,
Here.
Mr. Bernard, Mr. Hernandez.
Here. In memoriam of the, His Holiness Pope Francis tomorrow, we will be, having a moment of silence. We will not, the commissioners chose not to do that today at the workshop, but we will do that tomorrow, at the public meeting. Agenda item number 1 is to dispense the reading of the minutes of the workshop dated April 15, 2025, and the regular meeting dated April 16, 2025. 2, approve bills. 3, pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 5705.14, transferring monies submitted by the Trumbull County Auditor's Office. Gary, you're
Mr.
here.
Chairman, we have a printout that they did for us for all,
Right.
so we can read and it has the explanations on it, we can read it.
I mean, we can read them or we can have the sanitary engineer go
I
through.
mean, we can move on from that, there's a big agenda here,
Okay,
that kind of bogs us down and ties us up. a
okay,
little bit.
so there's only one that Shara wanted to explain, I believe, the commissioners, because it's such a large amount.
I just wanted to explain that was the actual mobile command unit for emergency management.
Oh, the 617,
Yeah.
okay,
That's theirs.
okay. Very good, Shara.
That's
You
all
can-
I need.
Which is still $373,000 less than what we appropriated. So that's-
Exactly, we appropriated,
Very good.
yeah, it's fantastic, really, so.
Great.
And just an update on the electric things, I did get a slew of NOPEC opt-outs that I have to handle for our electric. We are going with, obviously, CCAO for the facilities, which is CPV. So I have a stack of NOPECs that have to opt out, or they'll try to get us in there. No, that was,
One other thing before you go, I don't know who did this, but that's a great idea.
I think it's downstairs. Yeah. I think the auditor's office did that.
With the explanations and everything.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah, very good.
Yes, and I do want to thank publicly the auditor for
Yeah.
providing this.
that was amazing.
Yep.
To see all that detail is fantastic.
Yeah, that's
So it's good.
exactly what we need.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Okay, so agenda item 5 is again to approve appropriations as submitted by the county commissioner, or I'm sorry, the auditor's department. 6 again, to approve, 6 to approve a decrease of appropriations. This is interesting. The domestic relations juvenile court, in the amount of $50,939.52. I guess they were over appropriated, commissioners. So,
It says there was a grant amendment number 2, so. Must be a change to a grant that they had in the past and don't have now potentially.
well, we'll take it. $50,939.
Go to the general fund.
Where would it go?
If it's a fund number 112, typically,
Julie's.
Julie Green, planning commission. Each grant has its own fund. So if it is related to a grant and they weren't able to spend it within the timeline, potentially, I don't know, I'm guessing,
Okay.
it would go back.
That's Derek. Item number 6 is a request.
Lisa doing 0.
Lisa Denunzio, Blair Clerk. Item number 6 is a request from a department to decrease appropriation. This request decreases the total budget in a fund. It can come up for various reasons. The most common reasons are amendments to grants and receiving less money than estimated.
So it goes back as the grant. It won't fund the general.
No, it won't fund the Julie
Okay.
Green, it won't fund the general. However, I would talk to whoever submitted that to get the exact reason. Because it could be for a number.
Okay. We're moving on, number 7. Gary, you're here? I think you have 7 through 11.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, Gary Schaefer, from County Engineer's Office. Number 7 is to authorize our office to purchase sodium chloride through ODOT's winter season, and then also authorize, or, if the commissioners execute that participation agreement with the state. And that includes ours and all the other communities that are under our umbrella purchase. All that's included within that contract.
Gary, do we buy that now because it's cheaper now?
We bid on it now, but it says winter season, so yeah, that'll be into the fall before. We're taking spring that we bid on last year. We're always a season behind, so it's always a gamble. That's a good question. Number 8 is to concur with our office to grant the right-of-way permits as listed. Number 8 is to authorize the clerk to advertise for bids for the Old Town Viaduct Bridge Rehab Project. That's our 1,100-foot bridge over the Meander Reservoir. That'll be going out to bid here in May. Bid should be awarded by June and construction by the end of summer. Number 10 is to authorize the clerk to advertise for sealed bids for our 25 road pavement marking programs. That's all the center line striping and edge line. So we did bid out last year. This is phase 2 of that. And then 11 is to concur with our office to close the roadways. Those are Benedict Levintsburg Road, Deal South, and Bailey Anderson. 2 of those are in Braceville, one's in Warren Township. That's part of the contract the commissioners awarded early last year for those railroad track renewals. The railroad crossings are getting renewed as we speak.
Okay, Gary, by the way, and commissioners, we discussed this, there is a salt dome on State Route 7
Yes.
that the state is looking to sell. The engineer came to us about it. I did make a contact, commissioners, with our state rep, David Thomas, and David will get back to me. We wanted to know if the state would be interested in maybe selling the county the building or, that area for like $1.
A nice discount, yeah.
It'd be a big discount. And we had brought up the fact that, ODOT at the diverging diamond, we just came up with a pretty considerable amount of money to aid in that project there. And we're hoping that maybe the state would, be kind enough to let the county take control. We'll see what
Property's
happens.
a big benefit to us, and then we also got a grant to extend the sanitary sewer, so once we close on that property, we had $175,000 state grant to extend that sanitary.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I also reached out to Nick Santucci about the same item. And then I contacted Gary last week and asked Gary for a letter of support from the engineer's office for us to put a package together. And Representative Santucci said that he would get with David and then they would present this and same items, either they give it to us or we take it for $1, same
Yeah,
thing.
my understanding is they can't give it to us. We will have to buy it for at least $1.
Right.
A government entity, we can't,
I have the letter from the county engineer and we're gonna get some more letters and then we're gonna send a packet to them that can take it forward.
Right.
So we're all on the same
Yeah.
page, so.
good,
Yeah, like you alluded to, yeah, we're getting letters of support from several other communities that utilize the
right.
facility also.
So you're gonna get them from Brookfield and Hubbard and all
Yeah, our
those
office is
folks?
working on getting those as
Okay,
we
fine.
speak. Yeah, they started last week.
And then we'll put a cover letter with it from the commissioners and hopefully we can get
And
it.
it does make sense. We came forth with the diversion diamond we didn't expect, and then Howland Corners, they asked us to meet them there to not delay the project, and we did. So,
And the other thing we'll do is need a letter from the prosecutor's office.
Sure.
Yeah, so
Very
that's
good.
moving forward, so, in fact, I just got the packet today from Gary, so, thanks, Gary.
Okay, you're welcome.
You can let David know, let him know,
I will. Okay, I'm working with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Mr. Gargano?
Yes, John Gargano, JFS. Number 12 is a biannual sub-grant agreement with the State Ohio Department of Job and Family Services, Ohio Department of Medicaid. And with us, and the basis of that is to allow us to receive the funding that comes from the state and the feds through the state to us. Basically, it's done biannually.
Good. You got the parking lot done?
Yeah, we got the hole done. It needs
Okay.
more work, but at least we got the big holes done
Okay,
a couple weeks ago.
good. I know that we were working on that in the dog pound.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Julie, I guess you could take that home here like 13 through 17, I believe.
Julie Green, Trumbull County Planning. Item 13 is to correct or update the fund number for the hydrolit project. We're in year 2 and 3 for that. As you know, fund number 082 was established for the purposes of economic development and in consultation with, I imagine, your office, they determined that it's better to come out of the economic development fund. Item 14 is to rescind an agenda item that was passed in December. The Ohio Historic Preservation Office issued incorrect agreements. And so it's easier to rescind the old one and to authorize the brand new agreement. They did not ask for the items that were ultimately needed. So we had to post a public comment period of 30 days, put on the website, and also reach out to interested parties. All of that was provided to the commissioners. This is to allow for us to carry out our environmental review responsibilities for HUD-funded programs. We have a number of those ongoing, as you know, probably 10, including 2 that we serve as responsible entities on behalf of TNP and YNBC. Item 16 is to award a contract to Escajeda REB LLC, doing business as Alex Restoration and Masonry Repairs. This is the last project that is funded through the PY 2023 CDBG allocation program. And this is for masonry repairs and window replacements for the Emmanuel Community Care Center in Girard. These projects were approved in 2023 by the board to expend the allocation. As I mentioned last week, the new allocation is due in June. We'll be applying for that soon. And this year, the allocation is $632,000. Next week, I'll be presenting to you the applications we received. We have a ranking system that we put together based on guidance from the state of Ohio Department of Development. But ultimately, as long as they're eligible, it's up to the commissioners to select which projects you would like. My recommendation will be included in that. And our goal is to maximize the competitive grants using the allocation dollars. And so you'll see that reflected in our recommendations. Item 17 is to adopt a resolution by the Board of Commissioners in support of the Champion Township Matrix application. I'm actually doing this on behalf of Champion Township for a beginning of their recreation area up by the middle school. Their goal is to create a much larger recreation area. And so that's step one of meeting that goal. They're planning on installing a senior exercise station if they are funded. They have matching funds and they're planning on providing in-kind services. The resolution of support will give them extra points on this.
Thank you, Julie.
Well, before we move on, Julia, I've been hearing a lot of conversation about how to avoid Town Foxconn. Has your office received any word or notification on something happening out there?
Not to my knowledge, but you can talk to maybe Coggins about it. He would be the first point of contact for anything economic development related. He hasn't mentioned anything to me.
Yeah.
I got a call last week from some employees and I know that said they were retooling in there to get more into tech related stuff rather than the EV vehicles. They were restructuring some of that there, but I hadn't heard anything.
I think it's more than that. I just can't put my finger on it yet. That's why I was wondering whether should
Yeah, I would call Nick Coggins and
Okay,
discuss it
thank
with him. I believe you, I provided you with his contact information. I will after.
We have the open invitation there too, that we need to take a tour. And maybe if we can schedule a time one day next week and I'll set the tour up and the three of us can go get an educational
We can find
tour.
out for ourselves. right?
Yeah, let's do that. I'll look at the schedules with the scheduler, see if there's a time. Call Matt and see if we can schedule it.
Great.
I recommend you include Nick
Sure,
as your economic development director.
that'd be great. Yep.
Very good.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to the sanitary engineer, Gary.
Gary Newbrow, sanitary engineer, commissioners, items 18, 19, and 20. These are all household connections for phase 3 of the countywide slab program. First one goes to 2M, and that's for 3 houses in Yankee Lake Village. Well, they're all in Yankee Lake Village. 2M got 3 of the houses. The second one is TK Excavating. They got 6 of the houses in the village. And number 20 is Express Underground, and they got 5 of the houses. And Lisa, I just noticed a typo. I can tell that Bill McCoskey drew this up, he was going for an old one. And it should be Brookfield Township and Trumbull County combined sanitary sewer district instead of metro. Can you take out that word metro, make it combined? That's really responsible. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, on item 21, this is the public hearing for Pendleton Gilmer project. This is one of the largest projects that we undertake. It's the second part of the Meadowbrook area. There's 260 some connections out there. And I spoke to you last week about this date of June 4th. And you already told me you were clear with it. Bright High School is confirmed with it. We can have school for that night. So this is something to look forward to. Just breaking up that long resolution of necessity. Lisa's gonna have quite a job there.
I saw that.
Quite a job there on that one. Reading that resolution of necessity.
Gary, can you follow up too? I noticed we had the county engineers annual meeting, which we attended. the lady from OPWC was talking about the funding and how this is affected potentially by issue two. And there is the potential though that she showed of more funding available should this pass. Would that make Pendleton qualify this year, or are we still gonna be on the bubble or out until next year for OPWC funding?
We already have $750,000 grant that's from OPWC. They will not execute the grant agreement until the Ohio EPA finalizes that OSG grant. Remember that one, 3.8 million that we talked to, and they said they're gonna get some money to do with the
Replace it,
EPA.
right?
Once we execute that, then LPWC is supposed to execute that.
And this is something, commissioners, too, speaking of which, there is a ballot initiative for issue two, which keeps funding OPWC funds. And I noticed some of the other commissioners yesterday, Portage County posted all of their OPWC things that they've done over the past couple of years. And if we did the same thing, the bridge project on West Market right now, the what's the other big one you have going on right now, Gary?
Well, the meander one.
The Meander
Yeah,
one.
and then we got the South Main Avenue, south of downtown one.
And every year we have 3 to 5, those are ones just with the county. And then we have some of our municipalities also have some of their township funding under OPWC. If that money were to go away, if issue two fails, we can lose out on millions and millions of dollars worth of funding for road projects and bridges.
But the other important issue, that doesn't increase anybody's taxes.
Not at all, right?
So, we need to get that out there. That's critical for us to receive the grant money, but it's no increase in taxes. Doesn't cost the taxpayer a dime.
Right. And this is something, so that is a crucial thing
Right.
that issue two pass with a yes vote to keep this program functioning.
Yeah, Gary Newbrow, Senator Andrew. Commissioner, looking at my worksheet here, I can see the OPWC grant column. And on our water and sewer projects and so forth, we have received $13.7 million of OPWC grants. I mean, that's a significant amount to help us build this infrastructure. OPWC, that is one of the most important funding sources that we have.
Commissioners, I have a list here of every single project that the funding has hit here in Trumbull County. I'm working with CCAO.
Alex, just give your name. Come sit here.
Oh,
What are you doing there?
Farrell was there now.
yeah.
Huh? Well, we kicked shit out.
Alex Stephen Jones
For you.
Bush, Human Resources Department. I have a whole marketing toolkit here that I was gonna propose to the commissioners. We really should look into doing a sample resolution where the Board of Commissioners as well as other commissioners through CCAO have come up and they have said, we are, wanting you to help us pass this. Again, there's no tax increase. We can look at this toolkit here and I hope that we do this, if not next week, I had it on my radar to propose it to the Board of Commissioners.
And that does that state in there which projects we funded?
Yep, all of them in Trumbull.
Yeah, that's something we need to do some press releases about, that these projects were paid for by, or partially funded by
Bloomfield,
OPWC.
Braceville, Bristol, Champion, City of Portland. I mean, it goes into all of Trumbull County projects, not just necessarily county projects, but
Right.
as well as anything that it would have touched. These county. So this is very important. CCO has partnered with the Board of Commissioners. I just so happen to keep abreast of those things just because it matters for our county and how we do business. It matters for our engineer, it matters for, PWC, it matters for all of us. So the more money that we can get, the better, and there's less money taken from the general fund to fund projects. So we really need to be promoting this. Okay?
Yeah, but the election's coming up.
Yes, and people are already starting to ask. And the biggest misconception is, are my taxes going to be increased? So we really need to get ahead of it. But I didn't want to do it too early, because if we do it too early, people will forget. So, closer is better.
Great. Okay, commissioners,
And
anything
then
else?
this is for the May election. This isn't fall, right? This is for,
Yeah,
so this is coming up.
No,
close.
it's in May. Yeah, May 2nd, so.
I went and voted yesterday. It's the only thing on my ballot.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
So I guess people listening, they go vote right now.
Yep.
If you don't live in the city especially, if you have no issues, no contested races or whatever where you live, go vote now, but vote for this. If you're gonna do one thing to be fiscally responsible as a citizen, this is a good thing right here for our county.
Okay. We're going to move on to agenda item 22. And that is to acknowledge the resignation letter of Ms. Roberta Sycon. Sycon from her role as Secretary Council Member for the Senior Levy Advisory Council as of April 10th, 2025. And she did serve a 6-year term. So we want to thank her for her service to the Senior Advisory Board.
Well, Roberta was awesome. This is a big loss for our Senior Levy Advisory Council. It's a shocker. Must be, I think her work schedule, they meet during the days and it just wasn't going to be compatible with her new work schedule. But she is a very, very dedicated, passionate person when it came to this. When we reappointed her the last time, and even the first, when I first met her, she like had tears in her eyes caring about this position. She took it seriously and be hard to replace her.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Well, maybe we should do a resolution for it.
Absolutely. That is something that's a great idea. Yeah, we should for her because she did do a term and a half and I think everyone on her board would approve of that too. They don't want to lose her either.
She did actually 2 3-year terms.
Well,
6 years.
she's in the middle of her second 3-year term.
Oh, okay, so she'll retire or okay.
She didn't have
Commissioners,
to.
she's very involved, Alex Stephen Jensen Bush. She writes, she writes columns in the Tribune. She's very involved, even outside of just being on the board panel, excuse me. She was very involved in our senior committee, and it's a great asset to Trumbull County, no matter what. whether
We'll
it's
get ready
rural
for
or-
next week.
Let's get with Diane if we can, and Diane will give us some bullet points for that on what to say in the resolution. Very good.
Okay, 23, and to adopt a resolution to approve or deny the proposed vacation of a portion of Dice Street located in Howland Township. Commissioners, we were there, and there was a meeting here held here on April 16th. 24, to approve the utilization of Trumbull County Adult Probation of the 4th floor office space within the Stone Building previously utilized by Trumbull County Transit Department. Any renovations that will be needed to be completed will be done with grant funds utilized by the Adult Probation Department.
Okay, Commissioner, we have adult probation.
You are here.
Tracy has adult probation. Yeah,
You could have done that.
I could have. You did it for me. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a space where you had your transit office, which you've moved out. Dimitri is still up there in workforce development. I don't know if you're leaving him there or moving him out.
We're looking for a home for him.
But since you have open space, we would like to take it, if that's all right. Probation takes up most of that floor anyway. We could definitely use the space and said we'll renovate it at our dollar, so.
I have no problem with that. Utilization of space is what we want.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, we did a tour.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Number 25 would be permission for us to use, I believe you're calling it North Market, where the farmer's market is off of, in your green space, off of North Park Avenue. We would like to have last Friday of July, last Friday of August. We'd like to have a source fair in July. And then a pro-social event for our defendants in August. So just permission to use the space. The resource fair will be bringing together county and city, Warren City agencies for our defendants, their families. We're going to open it up to the municipal courts as well. It's just an opportunity to have county departments, charitable agencies all in one place to share services. We'd like permission to use the space, please. That's it.
Well, she there. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay, Mark's here from the Sheriff's Department. We have some, the cars, I think Bill, can you elaborate a little? I know you sent an email out concerning the purchase.
Go ahead and read that thing first, Rick, so people understand what we're talking about.
Okay, this is to award the lowest or best proposal as submitted by Montrose Auto Group for the purchase of 5 new interceptors listed by the Trumbull County Sheriff's Office in the amount of $65,828.55 per unit. for a total amount of $329,142.75 for 5 units. Quoted cost per vehicle meets or is under the state of Ohio contract number listed. State purchasing price for 2025 Interceptor and is $44,000 unmarked vehicle package and $21,828.55 police package. So, but we do need, I believe, a bid to go to bid.
Commissioners, Bill Danso, Prosecutor's Office. I talked to Mr. Manning this morning and we sorted some of this out. I think part of this was just some confusion about the way the language is on here, but what I've come to understand now is this is not a proposal or a bid. This actually, Montrose does have that state purchasing contract active right now. When I read the way this was drafted, I thought we were trying to buy them at a lower price than state purchasing, which is also permitted under the law. But it turns out that Montrose does appear to have an active state contract for the police interceptor vehicles right now. So this actually is just a routine state purchasing exception to competitive bidding. So I think we could, if we wanted to, we could change some of this language to be just that it is purchased pursuant to that state contract. The other thing is too, I think we need to double check that state contract number, because I did find the Montrose one on the website, and I think it's the number that Mr. Manning gave me this morning. This number on the agenda is a little bit different, so I don't know whether that was maybe a cut and paste from something or not. So, but I have the new sheet for the Ohio Buys contract number here with Montrose that's active until 9/30/25. So, I don't have any other legal things. I just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page, that this is actually a state purchasing contract purchase.
Now, the other question I had too is we appropriated $250,000 to buy 5 vehicles. And we're at $329,000 for 5, and then an additional 30,000 on top of it for the terminals, which we said we would take out the old vehicles, put in the new vehicles when we did that. Now we're looking at 360, which is $110,000 more than what we said that we would allocate. At that time, we gave the budget and then came up with this in addition to the budget.
So let me just clarify a little bit on top of that thing. Mark Manning, Trumbull County Sheriff's Office, CFO. So when we got the vendor, we told them we had 5 cars in our tech guy. He's got everything for the pot that we would need for the 5 cars, got the bid on it, because after the end of the month, those will change. Anything that we can take out, I just put the, because that was the bid, so I want to put the total number there. Anything we can take out of old cars that is usable, we're going to do, we're going to use. And so that just included 5 in case we needed 5, but we're sure there's stuff that can come out we can use. So, but we don't know exactly what that's going to be.
So the cost will be lower, you just don't know by how much.
Right, exactly.
And the cars are on the equipment for the cars. Because there's 2 on here. There's the cars itself at 65,000 a piece.
And then the
And then there's the mobile data terminals that are,
AWDS, that would, anything out of that we can pull out of the other cars, we can pull out. The police package, that you're looking at, I don't know if you're looking at the police package, that's, all the bars on the windows, it's the lights, just all the standard, the striping, all the standard that comes with a police car.
are we able to trade 5 in for this or not? Or are we keeping 5? That we're taking the stuff out of?
I imagine it's possible to trade 5 in. I don't want to, speak ahead of that, but
Does that gotta go to surplus?
enough cars, yeah.
Does that go to
I don't
surplus?
know, we allowed to trade vehicles in, or does that have to be auctioned?
Surplus?
There's a statute, 30712, I think, that talks about trading in vehicles upon the purchase of new one. So that is an option if there can be some sort of trade-in worked out.
Yeah, we've rotated the cars around, the ones that are not being driven that are at the SOs are using and things like that. They have the highest mileage, so those would probably be the ones
I know what we'll get out of them if we trade them in, but, I can talk to the sheriff about that.
I mean, anything we could get, I was gonna be more than what we
Yeah.
could scrap them for.
Right.
Yeah, typically what they do is, Sharon Taylor, Commissioner's Office, typically what we do is they stick around, they're striped, they can be used in an emergency. We really need to keep a couple around.
And we got a couple sitting on Panther right now that we just junked the trash because they sat there and rotted away.
No, one was crushed by a tree and there was another issue with the other one. They were literally,
They were salvaged.
they were literally
unusable.
salvaged.
Yeah.
One I think was so bad and I don't even know what they did.
They were both in accidents. So
Yeah.
They were actual, of course, that, and we had to.
Yeah, and it's valid, like I said, when we got enough cars now, but if a truck came down the road and hit 3 of our cars,
Yeah,
30 cars, then
it would be an issue. So we really need to keep at least a couple around, like in case of things like that, because they do, if something happens and they get into an accident, they can drive this for a couple weeks if it's gonna be repaired or whatever.
So what's happening currently, Alex mentioned Bush, and I don't want to speak too much of the operations of the sheriff's department publicly because those are things that I feel like really shouldn't be discussed. Only because of their safety issues surrounding that. But we do have specific entities. I can only attest to what I know because of the insurance claims. When a car gets wrecked or damaged, there is no backup car. We are running at a bare minimum
right.
amount of cars. I'm not saying that we should buy $36,000 worth of cars. That's not what I'm saying. That's up to the board of commissioners. But what I am saying is there is way more sheriff deputies and there is way more other entities within the department and other TAD and other places that we don't have a car for, when I can tell you right now, because when they wreck, when we get a deer, that happened 5 times in the past 6
right.
months. You know, I mean, they don't have another car.
And
And
or,
that's the reality.
you're correct, exactly. And also, if they gotta get new brakes and engine work
Correct.
done, they gotta have something to drive.
I can speak to one specific department that I know had 2 severe accidents, actually none of which were the public's fault, to be honest with you. And the lack of those 2 cars led them to not have cars, and they both just so happened to happen at the same time, so there was no cars for those employees during that time.
Yeah, so regardless of them having so many miles, if it's a temporary use, it's good to have a couple around.
I mean, not
Look
like
at you.
10,
You
but a
know,
couple.
the other thing is that the value of those cars and what these dealers are gonna give you for trade-in,
Oh, the trade's gonna be,
it's gonna be.
and then it has to be, all the striping has to be taken off, all the light, everything. It's a
They're
process.
basically custom fit for this field of operation.
What it would
They're
cost
not-
to
Right,
replace.
but the big question is then where do we get the extra money? We appropriated 250,000, now we're at 360.
No, I don't disagree, that's up to
Where do we
you.
get the extra 110?
Then buy
I don't know
one
how many
less
cars
car.
we're talking, but you won't get 110 out of those cars, guaranteed. I mean,
No, I guarantee we won't. I guarantee we won't. But I'm just saying, to get close, to get to that 250, what do?
How about we
Appropriate
just
4
4?
instead of 5? Or do we do 5 and come up with the money somewhere else?
From the clerk of courts money that we have set aside.
Well, that's what I mean. We keep dipping into that. We got 250 set aside for security in their evidence room. Now we had 250 we put aside for the cars. We, out of the other 500, we got $1 million of it. We set aside totally for them at the end. I mean, is all 2 million gonna go to the sheriff's department by the time we're done? Or, there's other departments that are, we just we gotta plan this through. Now, the other $500,000, I think we already appropriated some of that for a grant writer / lobbyist that's gonna come out of that money. So we're keep reaching in the piggy bank. We just need to know, we set aside 250 for this, now it's 110 more.
So
50% more
So
than
we're
what we
at Trumbull
appropriated.
County Sheriff's Office. So just to that point, we're working hard on that, the evidence rooms and the front of the sheriff's office of we're gonna put the bids out. We've already got some bids and we're working really tight to get that down. So at this point, I don't think we're gonna be near that 250, but that doesn't, that's not gonna fall.
But that wasn't all the 250. Now there's other, we said the safety of all the buildings was coming out of that 250. We know we gotta keep the planning commission and the archives.
Records.
And then we also talked about the other day with a meeting with the sheriff of opening up the side door for employee entrance now again. And we need a key fob on that, which is gonna cost some money to retool that door.
Commissioners, not only, and I just worked with the chief about, because he's looking to HR to try to help facilitate the back end of that. If that's what the commissioners want to do. You not only have to put a key fob access on there, every single county employee has to issue a key fob
Right.
to be able to fob into that. Anybody who works in this building or whoever else you may determine needs access to this building would then have to switch from right now. And those fobs, I mean, they're little, they cost money. I mean,
Sure.
It's all.
We have
Right,
extra,
so-
we have extras in data though.
Yeah.
I know we have extras. I don't know how many. I don't know who all.
I mean, there's a
I
lot.
thought everyone had a fob at this point.
Well,
I don't know.
not every employee is gonna need a fob. I mean, just the ones that come in early, the rest of them gonna come around. and
The
go.
employees who, yeah, but a lot of them, commissioner, do come in free.
Yeah, and this was to have, the plan was, I mean, it's employee entrance, not just some employee entrance, it's an employee entrance and exit. And then
And
the
many
key
of
fob
us-
tracks who's coming and going too.
It does, it's actually
So,
a really
you know.
good, you can tell who's coming in and out.
Well, we can see them.
They're minimal. They're minimal. I want to say, if I remember correctly, a few $100
Yeah.
for, like 50 of them. Like,
Oh, really?
yeah, it's
It's
minimal.
the actual mechanism that costs the most, like to put.
Yeah, the actual swipe.
And then remember that emergency management and our tag, we've been told by technology, that is done. That goes down, they have no way to get into their buildings. That is at end life, past end life, there's no support to it. It's just to the point where if it goes down, they're locked out.
Mark, my question is, if we bought you 5 vehicles this year, do you think that we could go next year without buying you any vehicles?
Well, the plan was to, since there's never been a plan together to purchase vehicles every year, I'd like to hear more, okay, we purchase less, but
I know it was before this administration, but we did spend $900 and some thousand on vehicles 2 years ago.
No, it was close to $1 million. It was like 3,000 shy. We got a lot
Right
of stuff.
before I got here, so I guess it's been 3 years
But
ago.
There was one
unfortunately, that didn't
unmarked.
go to police cars as far as road cars.
There were 14 cruisers and one unmarked.
Oh, okay.
That was purchased with ARPA
Oh, you're
money.
not talking about the admin ones. Okay.
No,
No,
it was a
that-
full fleet of cars,
Oh,
38,
okay.
I believe was
Yeah.
purchased,
Yeah,
38.
we-
It was a full fleet.
We
so.
did 15 cars, one unmarked and 14 cruisers.
We bought 38 total, but of that 38.
Well, it's your decision, but what I would like to do is to have a plan that we add several cars every year so that we get the
Well,
rotation.
we need to make that plan.
We should have
Having a plan is great, but we need to make that plan, I guess is,
No,
or we need that plan
We need to
presented
find
to
the
us,
money,
not
right?
us make the plan.
Well, that's what I said. So I'd like to get 5, and if we can get 3 to 5 next year, so I'd like to do that. That's the plan.
So
What if you
still,
did 4 this
where are you
year?
getting the money
Okay.
for the extra money for the fifth
So
car?
do 4, but then I'm gonna need a fund number still.
Well, no, we have to decide where that's coming from. Because it'll have to be moved into the vehicle fund.
So if we do 4, how much additional money do we need?
You're gonna take off 65 plus 30, so you're gonna take off $95,000.
Well, I think they'll.
Oh, wait,
need
I'm sorry,
s-
6,000, sorry.
They're gonna need some of those MDTs and that from AWS.
About 70, yeah.
Yeah,
We're still gonna be over that 250 by about 30 or 40,000, like, that's a lot easier than 110,000.
We can't get that through any kind of drug money or for the canines or anything like that, through a grant or anything like that.
That's out there right now.
Well, that leads me to another idea, which, since we have April here with us, I always assumed that all the opiate money that we had just went right to her and she's in control of all that stuff. She's not. She, unfortunately, I'm sure she would do great with it if we gave it to her, and we probably should. But we have a commissioner's account with the opiate money that we brought in over the past his lawsuits that has 3 million, I believe, in there.
Commissioners, you have 2 accounts, Alex and Jensen Bush Human Resources Department, just to be transparent.
Do you know what the amounts are?
Yes, one is
One's
3
two,
million, one
one's
is 1
one.
million.
Okay, so we got $3 million sitting in accounts,
You have 3 million total, yeah,
3 million total.
so far.
And I know we've talked to the attorneys about this before. They said, well, you can't do this, that, could be programs. Could one of these vehicles be drug enforcement vehicle, have drug enforcement on the hood? be maybe a sergeant or the response one, if there is a drug-related crime or a drug something that is used or is a sign that is, like, we used to have a litter control vehicle. We've had the dog vehicles, the canine vehicles. Could one be a drug prevention vehicle that maybe that officer does some school work, things like that, or does some things like that, and then we can appropriate maybe one of the vehicles out of this 3 million that's just sitting there for 3 years now, and we don't touch it for anything. I think we need to get that money in play. We need to give her some more tools to work. We had talked about, we have a presentation coming in at 11:30, talking about some marketing and public relations things we can maybe work jointly with the sheriff's department and with April and with some radio promotion type things about drug prevention. Is this something that is a possibility? Bill?
Commissioner Bill Danso, Prosecutor's Office. All I will say, and I have not talked to Mr. Galucci about this, our county's lawyer on this case recently, but I was told originally early on that law enforcement itself was not a permissible use of this money. That things that could be tangentially related, such as treatment, things to be to reduce opioid use, things like that could be somehow, but law enforcement itself, in whether that be through the sheriff's office, through the prosecutor's office, was not an appropriate use. Now, maybe April can speak more to that than I can. That's just what I remember being told probably 2 years ago at this point by some of our attorneys. So I would just be cautious with that. We'd have to double check to see.
Well, April, you're the expert on this. You were in court. You were in the front lines for us. What are your thoughts on something like that?
April Caraway, Trumbull County Mental Health Recovery Board. I've studied the abatement strategies and what's allowable for several years now. A vehicle is not accused. That's a simple answer for that. Programs in the jail are allowable if they're related to drug use, opiates and so forth. And Dave, Bobby, and I have come up with a suggestion plan for using some of the money to offset both of our funds so we can provide more help for people and stretch our dollars more. So if you want, I can.
Well, let's wrap up with this part of it first, then. Okay.
Commissioners,
Those aren't, so.
quick, Alex Stephen Johnson Bush, there's an MOU, it's extremely important. The MOU is with, it details out specifically what can and can't be spent. April and Mr. Deans are correct. It has to be about treatment, or it details out to the line level treatment, early intervention, crisis support, addressing the needs of criminal justice involved persons, but again, has to be tied to prevention or treatment. Mother-centered treatment and support, recovery support, prevention, first responders prevention, treatment. It has to be tied back to stigma reduction. It has to be tied back to the mental health aspect in a way, shape, or form. It cannot just be just use like a card just to go address any 911 emergency, so on and so forth. Because how do you correlate that back to technically mental health? Not necessarily. Who's trafficking? You just have to be very careful, and it's restricted. It's federal money. So.
Julie Green, Trumbull County, already jumped in here. I wanted to go back to your point about the safe use of safety funds. I wanted to mention that our facades will need to be replaced completely. The doors are from the 1950s. I know you mentioned having the fobs added. I don't think that is all that is necessary.
I kick your door in a heartbeat.
Yeah, yeah, those doors remind me of GC Murphy Co. on Mahoney Avenue on the west side. They're that old. So that's one. The other thing to the discussion now, so it's my understanding that the settlement agreement, April can speak to what is able to be spent with these dollars. Can you identify something that is currently being funded through their general fund and take that, use that money for the vehicles and then use the opioid money to pay it?
So we have to be careful of the word supplanting.
Okay.
But
That's why I asked.
we can do,
I understand.
stay within the lines and do some expanded programming, and that
So you can't trade off, you have to.
is not a direct trade.
Got it.
The commissioners, I did have a phone call, Mr. Danza, from the attorney Galucci 2 days ago. And there was an offer made, more money's coming from the opioid. But he called it a bridge, it's a negotiation. So there's still a negotiation, so you can count on more money coming in. So with all these monies coming in from these opioids, I suppose we're gonna have to figure a way to best utilize it, you know.
We got her sitting right here. She's got plenty of ideas. If we give her the green light.
Well, commissioners, I think like you're tasking Mr. Manning to do with the cars, we should have a strategic plan for everything. I know nobody wants to hear that word strategic plan, but you really should sit down with the vested partners. Thank you. You should sit down with the vested partners, specifically people. You really need to, so we know it's coming. We need to position ourselves on what's your top priorities? What can it be used for? And get yourself a plan of what can be done immediately, 3 years out, 5 years out, 10 years out. Let this be your legacy, because this money, once it's gone, it's gone. It's like the MCO monies. You get a settlement and then that's it. It's not here forever. And we do have to remember what the cause is. And we have a lot of department heads here who deal with mental health and or other types of public, public things that are happening right now. So you should get the right partners at your table and make sure that you have an idea of what they need and how we can better position our county in the future. It's not- And benefit our people too.
Okay,
Citizens.
so what are we gonna do about the cruisers, 4 or 5? I think we're safe if we do 4.
4 puts us still a little over the budget we wanted, but I think that's not gonna hurt.
I mean, we'd like to do 5, we'd like
Find
to
the
do
money.
8.
If it's 4, 5 puts us way over the,
Yeah.
way over the mark, so no pun intended, Mark.
I don't wanna rain on a parade. I wish we could buy 10 today.
I do
mean,
too.
No, it's understandable why it was with.
we're just trying to, when we have so much, the auditor's office be throwing a fit here and we want to give an extra 110, that we weren't planning on when
Yeah,
they
but safety's
didn't get everything
important.
they wanted and other departments didn't get everything they wanted.
Safety is very important.
Absolutely.
And I
Is.
think this board recognizes.
And I heard a story from a deputy the other day, had to drive some prisoners to Canton and back. Right, and got 286,000 miles on his car, and I'm thinking, I think that thing even stay together from here to Canton. What if that thing breaks down on the side of the road and you got a violent criminal prisoner in the back of your car and we're driving around on, that's unheard of, 286,000 miles.
There's a lot like that, a lot over 150,000.
And we do need, with that too, I'll state this because it was talked about before your administration, and I believe the sheriff is heading in that direction. We have to look at more video arraignment things. We're driving people to Central District Court and Eastern District Court every, a couple days a week, expending miles on a vehicle when they could just be moved out of a cell, downstairs in the jail, do a video arraignment and save all the mileage.
David Bobby's, yeah.
That would save miles on the vehicle, besides all the other factors of it.
Yeah, working on all that right now. Well, I mean,
Okay,
Go
so,
ahead.
David Bobby, I'm a major. What you said is absolutely true. That could all be done. We're currently doing that now. We run court. I was just in court. I think Niles was running court or somebody else, but keep in mind, when you're not taking them, somebody else has to move those inmates. So every time we say, we're not gonna take them out of the jail, we're just gonna do it in-house, that taxes the staff that, are currently, somebody's gotta go get this guy and get him out of the cell. And one thing that happens too is the court gets pretty jumbled. We had 14 from Niles, or I think it was Niles yesterday, 3 from Newton Falls, and people got mad because they had to wait. So there's only one monitor in there, and it takes some time, to do that court session. So everything's doable. It'd be nice if maybe we could stretch it out into the evening or afternoons or something like that, but everything's doable, but who wants to do that, right? So we're prison people, we can do anything.
I'm just looking from a vehicle standpoint, it doesn't expend any miles on a vehicle.
I do think, and I've done some research on this. If you go in the opioid, there's different categories. And there is a category for law enforcement. I'm not sure you'd have to, really read. I didn't really read it that closely because I wasn't really interested in it then. But when, like the drug dogs, there's a category in there for prevention. So if you're using the drug dogs to go sniff out opioid products and trying to keep them out of the schools and out of the jail and everywhere else, you can obviously say, hey, that's a prevention program. So I don't even know if our dogs have a car. I don't even know. So, but I think there's probably a little bit more research, maybe some discussion with the Attorney General's office.
Your cars, you do have specific ones that are marked for canines, yes.
What's
I mean,
that?
they're still the same car, but they're marked specifically with canine. You do have canine.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying the car's any different. I'm realistically, but there is a specific decal that says canine dog in the car.
Right.
So.
Right.
So what you're saying is you're gonna research that and see if you can.
I mean, I
use some-
didn't, I didn't know this was, you know.
And we have,
I mean, I can do some research
yeah,
on
and we
that.
have that $3 million sitting there.
Right.
That, we don't have to have that answer today.
And I know they want to order the cars, but we could,
I don't know.
Let me back up then real quick. So we're gonna reduce on this agenda item, we're gonna reduce this to 4 cars instead of 5. Is that what we're,
Correct.
Commissioner Malloy, is that what we're agreeing to?
4.
4.
4, no problem. 5, I just,
So
Yeah, and I think.
it's
they'll be
not
happy.
money we budgeted.
at this
I
point,
think
you
they'll
know,
be happy.
the budget doesn't call for the 5th, but we'll work forward.
No, yeah.
You know, move forward to get, and then,
Yeah.
and I would suggest, like, Mark had mentioned, that we put, we had done this in Hubbard Township with cars. Now you want it every year, but every 2 years, we call for a new car, but that's Hubbard Township. So in the sheriff's case, we should delegate, or monies towards the purchase of cars so that we're not having to purchase 5, 10 at a time, but you know, every year or every 2 years, we're purchasing 1 or 2 cars. You know, that would work much better.
Yeah,
then it
that's
would
what,
just-
steady plan in place.
We'd have to have a plan in place for that, right? That would be suggested. I think. we should
Someone,
do that.
someone told me, I don't know if it's true or not. But you know, Vienna's in fiscal emergency right now and they've got their police department and fire department. But someone said they've got 5 or 6 police cars sitting there unused because they don't have the officers to man them.
We bought one from Brian, Hubbard Township. We
So
actually bought one.
I'm wondering, is that something where we can maybe work something out with some of the, if there's excess inventory in some of the townships of vehicles?
They are all lettered though. They're all lettered and you'd have to pull the lettering and all that, and redo them, but, I mean, it's an option. Some of them, if they're newer cars, you know.
We also bought the Marks radios.
Right.
They're just sitting. And not to bring this up, but the opioid money, there's a national and there's a state. So that also, there might be different rules for each one of those, just an FYI.
And those are the
Really
two
good.
dedicated accounts. That's
Yeah,
why there's 2.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, one's national, one's state.
Thank you.
So we got money on both fronts.
But both are gonna be regulated.
Yes.
You can count your bottom dollar on that, just as the ARPA money.
Yeah, I've had to report on that.
Yep.
So it'll be along the same lines. So ultimately, we just need to decide what account we're taking these 4 cars.
Well, we had already said out of the,
The 2 million?
out of the first million,
I'll have to.
$1 million set aside for reserve,
right.
as collateral for the sheriff's department. Out of the first
I'll
million
give you the fund numbers.
Okay.
out of there.
Okay, thank you. No one needs me to wait.
And when you're done, they'll let us know how much is left.
Sure. Absolutely.
And this is, and I just want to reiterate too, so people who watch the stuff, this is a workshop. That's why we do it this way.
Yes.
We're not just throwing it, this is where we work things out. We figure stuff out like this collectively with the department heads. That's why it's a workshop.
Okay, so my last question, Mark, how long would it take to get delivery?
By time, we don't know with the, some of the final parts from the vendor that has to be put on, but, probably 2 months. But then the additional stuff, how long is that gonna take and pull stuff out of the cars? We don't have an exact on that. It depends on when they get here and what their backlog is at that point.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Major, I think, is this item number agenda 27, is this you? Or can you? Corrections, no? Okay, to adopt a resolution by the Board of Trumbull County Commissioners authorizing the execution of an amendment to agreement to sublease with respect to community-based correctional facility as follows. And it's here. Our clerk will read this tomorrow. 28, we're going to enter in.
What, explain that, what is this?
You
Lisa,
wanna
where
read
did this
through
come
it?
from?
I don't know.
This-
Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction.
I mean, and
I mean,
it's
it's
sublease
from
and
the-
it's saying community-based correction facility, but which facility, which?
Nobody's here to represent it. I mean, I can read all the way through it, but
I mean, reading all the way
I
through,
mean,
it still doesn't
actually,
say
it
who.
came in at the end of the week last week. And I just wanted to get it on because this is the 8th time that we're getting some monies.
Commissioners, Bill Danzo, Prosecutor's Office. I've looked at the paperwork on this, that came from the Department of Rehabilitation and Correction, and the paperwork doesn't, I don't have any legal issue with it. It doesn't, though, specifically identify the facility, but I will say historically, when I see community-based correction facility, it generally is NeoCap. But I think that's something that maybe should be confirmed with them beforehand. What this generally is simply, they've applied for, state funding to put some improvements in the facility. And we do an amended sublease whenever they do put more money into the facility in terms of renovations, rehabilitation of the facility. And, this is just what we do to essentially agree to that process with the state of Ohio and with that funding source. But I can't be, I can't be sure that it's NeoCap, but I suspect it probably is. Yes, I think that's what I have.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is that the facility that we took a tour of?
I just wish it would say something in here
I think
directly
it
what
should,
it
I
is.
agree.
What we agree on.
Yeah.
411.
Yeah,
that would be, yeah.
that just needs to be in here. I agree.
Facility.
it's a nice facility too. I mean, we spent some time in this very nice facility. Okay. Any more questions, Commissioner?
Not regarding that, though.
28, enter into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 121.22G4. Preparing for conducting review and negotiations, collective bargaining strategy for Trumbull County Sheriff's Department. Then we will reconvene and come out of executive session. 121.22G4. We'll go into executive session again, preparing for conducting, reviewing negotiations, collective bargaining strategy for the Trumbull County Sheriff. And 30. The sheriff again, to accept and reject the tentative agreement pertaining to collective bargaining agreement between Trumbull County Sheriff Unit 5 clerks, kitchen staff, and custodians, Ohio Patrolmen's Benevolent Fund. I don't know. Alex, if you want to, something else.
Commissioners, we have been obviously in negotiations with the last TLN 5 for a very long time with the sheriff's OPA. And we have reached a tentative agreement. The union has voted on it, and we will present that tentative agreement to you tomorrow in executive session, and we will either agree to the tentative agreement or reject the tentative agreement. That's where we're at. And then by the time we get done with this one, we're gonna be starting all back all over again with unit 1. So, yeah, a revolving door.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Major, we wanted to, I think you had something.
Sure.
April, yeah.
Oh, with April?
Yeah, we're a team.
Oh, okay.
So April Caraway, Director of the Mental Health Recovery Board. We're gonna talk about the opiate settlement funds that are in your accounts, and I prepare folders for the commissioners. Prepare a couple of extra. And, actually, needs them. I didn't know how many to create. So within here, we've worked together since the new sheriff came in. Dave and my assistant director Lauren, just go for it and see the $100,000 grant for the sheriff's office. We're working together with all of the mental health and addiction service providers coming into the jail to help provide counseling, case management, get them the right meds, all that stuff. As we've done for years, our board, the mental health recovery board, puts in over $100,000 a year directly of services to the jail. And we don't have to, by statute, we don't have to, but we know as a board that everyone in there has a mental health and addiction problem. You know, that led to a lot of crimes we're committed. So we've been partnering with the bill for a number of years on that. One thing I want to go back to with the transporting of prisoners, it's not really clear of it, just so you know. When someone decompensates in the jail psychologically, they have schizophrenia, they're hallucinating, whatever, we have to get them pink slipped and into a mental hospital bed. When we lost the 36 beds at Trumbull Stewart, it's really hurt us. And that's one of the reasons they're transporting people down to Canton to Sunrise Vista for stabilization. And so we're helping, we have Coleman staff in there helping facilitate all that, doing the screens and so forth. I have a meeting next week, Generations, Behavioral Health and Liberty. And we're going to talk specifically about will they take those decompensating children. They haven't in the past, but they're reconsidering. So that will save time and money, chill, you know, time for driving people that can't just have to drive delivery. So working on that to save some money. Stewart had started taking them for Trumbull Memorial, and you know, now they're gone. So we're really in a bind trying to find places for people. In the packet here, and I'll leave these obviously with you, but I put in here, you know, our board brochure. I want to talk, and in the second on the left side, I have put this together for my board back in 22. Monies that we knew were coming in for the commissioners, and I don't have an update on how much is in there and from what funds. This is kind of old, but it's relative because you're getting One Ohio Foundation funding, you're getting the local government share. The third bullet is part of the One Ohio Foundation. There's a Region 7 board, and the previous commissioners appointed me to that board. And Wayne Corelli, the director of the Mahoney County Mental Health Recovery Board, is also on it. And you appointed 10 other citizens, and we read 90 some grants. And as a result, if you look at this came out from the One Ohio Foundation and it's on their website. This is how the first round of Region 7 funding was spent. So you can take a look at that. That's in addition to monies that you got. So there are a lot of streams of funding in different places, none of which have come to the Trumbull County Mental Health Recovery Board. I'm thankful to be on this committee so that I can tell others on the committee when we got grant applications. I don't think we should fund this particular application for this agency because I currently fund it with levy dollars. So we had, you know, the right people at the table, so we didn't duplicate anything and stretch the dollars for Trumbull County as much as possible. So you can see that. And then with regard to that great big lawsuit that Lake and Trumbull were involved in, and I was blessed to be the key witness, 3,000 some pages to do that. We lost our appeal. So what had been projected as at the bottom 306 million over 15 years to Lake and Trumbull went to zero. There's one final appeal according to the attorney, but I'm not hopeful. What I learned in that whole process is they called it a waterfall win, so that when Lake and Trumbull went jury trial, 6 weeks, we won. All the other counties, so forth across the nation who had sued the pharmacies too, all those pharmacies settled with them. So they all got funds across the nation. Lake and Trumbull, who carried the water, probably will get zero from it. But the nation got helped, because of the commissioners going into that lawsuit and, you know, trying to recoup the devastation that the opiate epidemic, caused, especially at the peak in 2017. So that's just a little history on that. So it's an older document, but I want to put in there because the commissioners, you know, are newer since when that happened. In here also, they've put together a couple things, you know, why we need to work together to do these things. So the key proposal is this one right here. And always to be good stewards of public funds, you want to have a sustainability plan. So Dave and I are requesting utilization of the funds, just a little over $1 million. Because how are we going to sustain it next year? And I don't know how much money you're coming in. But if you funded these projects or any additional or different ones, you know, this is all beginning, it's all negotiable. I want to make sure we didn't go beyond much of the $1 million mark so that we could also pay that next year and pay that the year after. Because once you set up programs and you hire staff, you don't want to just say, okay, you had a job for a year, the money's gone to buy. So it just wouldn't be good for anybody to do that. So we also, as a board, are losing federal funds. So I'll just start from the beginning. Transportation for people in recovery. All of these, we've listed the abatement strategy that they match and that we're asking, you know, for your allocations. And that would be for $75,000, and that's a partnership with the jail, especially transporting people once they're released from incarceration. They can make a decision to go use, and they can make a decision to go treatment. And so we have a lot of people going into the jail now, signing them up for services upon release, but we want to get them there. So that would help us hold their hand and get them down to the agency to engage in treatment, to keep taking the medication they need, whatever. So the second one is jail-based treatment. We're looking for $150,000 a year. Now, we want to increase services for psych, because he knows so many people have mental health needs in the jail. We can't cover the need. So this way, we could increase psych services with our board levy dollars if we could pay for some of the substitute services appropriately out of the opiate funding. And so when I talked about planning, we have to make sure it's an expansion, and that would be an expansion. So it would be planning. Another thing is somebody to navigate everything going on. We have people from Meridian, Pullman, Thrive. We have 12-step groups wanting to come in. The sheriff's going to start allowing faith-based programs to come in. Nobody's doing air traffic control, and that can't all be on David. He's in charge of the whole jail. So we're asking for funding for a person to control all of those, have meetings, make sure people are getting the service they need, the agency's staff are getting in when they need to, all of that stuff. So that cost is in there. The body scanner that the previous sheriff bought needs fixed. $92,000 is the cost for that. That's appropriate because it's keeping drugs out of the jail. Workforce development is the biggest ask at $500,000 a year. We are losing federal funds through SAMHSA for the workforce development we're doing. I'm a huge proponent of people in recovery need to go to work. Have to get them back to work. They have to learn a trade. Contract with Pullman Compass and Flying High, especially to get people the trade and the skills they need to get back into the workforce. So because we're losing money, it's not planning, I'm not moving that money. It would be to continue to contract with Flying High to provide those employment services. And then the last thing on here, addressing the needs of the criminally justice involved persons. And that's something that Dave, you could talk about.
That's community service. Dave Bobby, jail administrator. So one of the things that I believe is important is whenever you have a program, there should be a purpose to it. One of the things that we had talked about was a community service project. We had a collaboration between the sheriff's office and airport shop, and then we met with probation. You know, all these folks are getting community service, they have fine money to pay and all this, and they just kind of squander out there and nobody does anything. What we want to do is we want to turn that into like a purpose-driven program where the people go with our corrections officer, and they go out and do these community service projects that we all know that we need to get done. But the purpose of it is A, to do the project we need to do, and B, that the person that's involved in that would end up with some kind of skill, some kind of certificate of employability, something that they can show a prospective employer that, hey, look, I have, 6 to 8 hours on a zero-turn lawnmower. I'd like to get hired at your company. Because that's one of the biggest problems with some of these folks is they have such a history that they can't really get hired. So that was the proposal, is that, we do the community service project. But there has to be some kind of, rather than, okay, your fine is done, go. We want to get them some kind of certificate of employability or something, and just to teach them how to have a job. Some of them don't know that. They've never done it before.
And he's written up in the blue folder more detail on those two positions specifically, so they're in there. But that's high level, what we're talking about. How the funds would flow, I don't know, they're in the commissioner's account. I think if you agree to, the projects, then we'll have to sit down and figure out a way. Do you pay those directly? Do you want to transfer them from the recovery board and then we do the contracting and payments? I don't know. Delve that deep.
Just the question is, we have these opioid monies to work with, but long-term supporting this, where the commissioners, where we can support this and these monies. You know what I'm saying? We have the opioid monies now, but my
We'll have
question
money coming in every year too. I mean, the
grants?
One Ohio lawsuit funds that are coming out to the region and to the counties is a 17-year.
17 years.
They're 17-year.
Do we know what the amount is?
I don't know how much you guys are getting.
Well, it's very well prepared and I think, yes, it's mental. This is where a lot of this is coming from, mental illness. And they do need to be placed in job placement. Unfortunately, they can't get the jobs because they've been in such, either incarcerated or, just into drugs. And so it's tough. So these programs, I think, for Trumbull County in general, we need more emphasis on mental health, I believe. We really need to concentrate on our county providing these services for mental health. So this is very well put together. I personally like every bit of it. But of course, there's a lot here, and I don't know what the commissioner's feelings are concerning it.
Well, and you talk about a strategic plan. If you go to our website, or I can send you a copy, we do a community plan every 2 years with our state department. And all those pieces and parts are in there. We are paying for recovery housing. We're working already with legal aid. Because felonies are a big problem. Why people can't get jobs. So, again, with our board's sort of extreme air traffic control, but knowing what we're already invested in and where our needs are, it helps so that you don't have groups coming in wanting with good hearts, I want to do this, and they don't know it's already being done. They may not realize it's already being done. So it's I think good to have one consistent strategy that everybody knows about. And we have our funding stream our cycle is opened up right now. People are requesting funds from us. I have over 45 contracts with agencies for funding. Our budget is $8 million a year. And we get 3.4 million in levy dollars. And I have 11 staff. I do everything I can to put the dollars out in the services, not in administration.
April, well, it seems like this whole thing here is all based on those incarcerated or based on the people in institutionalized already, people that are caught after and want to rehab through there. Out of your budget that you spend every year, is this an area just overlooked in your budget? And that's why there's such a void in the jail with all of this and why it's needed through this?
We don't have the funding.
So this was just kind of put off last.
They don't, based on statute, we don't have to put any money in the jail. We're putting over 400,000 already into the jail because that's where people are. We know that. But when the jail says we need more, I said, I know, but I don't have more money to do it. So this is an opportunity
Are
to
there
get the
other
money to do
areas,
it.
are there other areas coming to you saying we need more money and you don't have the money to do? it? Schools.
Oh, every single day.
I mean, other places.
Every single day.
Emphasis in other areas.
Right, but we have to prioritize based on the strategies too. And we get prevention dollars, we have programming in all the schools. So, you know, I'm looking at where are we already investing our money and where are the unmet needs? The incarcerated population is still the highest. unmet need.
My only question is, and I think it's put together very well also, the salary base, how did you guys arrive at the salary base? And is it kind of in conjunction with our HR and what we do for the county?
Dave, with those,
Right, so for the corrections officer, we just use what our average price is for salary and benefits. And then I think the case manager, I just kind of looked at kind of what we're paying for case managers in the area. You know, obviously it's probably a degree position, so it would require a little bit more money to attract somebody that's gonna take that job.
So you really don't have a job description or anything like that? Yeah.
But we do for the corrections officer, for the case manager, no. I mean, I'm assuming that we have one.
Can I just, if I don't, if I can see the salary line.
Where are you looking correction officer versus thing? Let's go like line
So
by
we're talking
line.
the 115, the Trumbull County Jail Behavioral Health Case Manager, that would be for the case manager.
Right, yeah.
But what about,
Where would the correction officer want to come into play?
The
with this?
community service. The very last one.
Also, that's this 96,000 a year you're looking at?
Yes.
So you're thinking a different position that just handles that?
well, consider benefits are almost 30,000, so
yeah,
cut that off the top.
right. So it looks like, Commissioners, to answer your question, this would be a dedicated, and correct me if I'm wrong, this looks like Major Bobby, this would be a dedicated position, kind of like what, I don't want to use somebody's name, but we had somebody in there who was kind of doing that before, you know, Watkins was kind of doing,
Right.
you know, that community-based service,
Right.
getting the inmates out, making sure that they were, you know, doing things to get that, work experience under their belt, if you will. Is that what the intent of that is, just to cover that, or hire somebody new to cover that?
Well, we would hire somebody, we would hire another corrections officer.
To replace whoever's gonna be doing this.
Yeah, you know, we have a union shop. So, you know,
I
obviously,
know that.
I mean, I think it's if you're a corrections officer. Now, if I hire somebody that's not a corrections officer, then I could put it in there.
Well, you
but
could,
then,
you could always create a non-bargaining job, just so you know, my friend,
create a what?
create a non-bargaining job.
Right, but then it would be limited on what else I can use it for. If we don't have anybody to take out, if the weather's horrible.
I get
if-
it.
You know what I mean?
I
Then
get it.
I can use them as a corrections officer.
Okay, so I hear you loud and clear.
Does this cover like, every time I see like a road cleanup, or something, you see the person out there, there's 3 or 4 guards out there, but not just one
Yeah.
guy.
Well, we
So
would
how
only
would that
have
be?
We would only have one, but, so they just would have less inmate ratio, so you just can't have, you know, 20 inmates to one, you know, corrections officer out there
Right,
monitoring.
so what you're seeing is the DRC crew probably
way
from
different.
Trumbull,
Yeah,
and that's funded by ODOT.
that's
So
correct.
ODOT reimburses DRC for those officers. And then, you know, there's certain, you know, there's a lot of other stuff to consider before we go out and do a project. You know, it can't be something that we're currently paying somebody to do. You know, it can't be, you know, there's some requirements before we can have I'll defer to the lawyer in the room. There's a lot of things that have to be done before. If I have a sergeant, we'll have to go out and do a site visit, make sure it's safe, make sure that, you know, we're not working in an area that's, you know, gonna get somebody hurt. So there's a lot of planning and stuff that goes on with that.
But some of this like senior levy, we just talked about mowing grasses and stuff. But they have their senior levy money that pays for those services. Could there be a partnership thing with that, with some of the stuff or not? If it's,
Well, so they're currently already doing some of this, is what he's saying. I mean, we know that. They're currently doing some of the grass cutting and landscaping. They're currently doing, I mean, we have, in the past, we've had them work at the vehicle maintenance shop. They were helping to, you know, service cars, so on and so forth, things like that. But yeah, you are right. I mean, with it being a union position, there's only so much you can you can do, and you do have to follow, and make sure everything's tied up from an employment labor standpoint and law standpoint, but, and then as far as the caseworker goes, I mean, that looks pretty normal, the $115,000. My question is, are we contracting with the behavioral health case manager, or is Trumbull County employing them? That's my question.
I
So
want
would
to
it
hire
be-
some.
Okay, so who would that caseworker be reporting to? The Trumbull County Sheriff's Office?
Me.
Okay,
What about this like transportation and things like that? Is that the 75,000 a year?
So that would either be through my office or the commissioners.
We wouldn't be using a police officer to transport these people when they're coming out of jail, going to the facility, like
once they're
taking
released
them to
from,
Canton now?
Police officers?
no,
If you could do it a lot cheaper, if you did.
I can tell you.
Yeah, that is not in their contract currently, I mean, but.
Once they're released, I don't think you can put them in.
No, yeah,
I can tell you that we would have used that twice today before I came here. What time was it? 10:30? Before I came up here, we would have used that 2 times. We had 2 people in there that were released from court, had nowhere to go, nowhere to take them, coming down off of whatever they were on, and nowhere to go. We would have used it 2 times just this one.
yeah, once they're released from our detention center, they're no longer under our care, so to speak, so we don't want to. I mean, we would have to find some people to transfer.
Well, and we use Valley Recovery Partners.
There you go. Yes, that's what they're there
Why
for.
we were
Yep.
hoping for some funds to be able to use that in the population. Be a lot cheaper than.
Paying the sergeant, and then using our cars, and then,
Right.
Obviously there's a lot
Right,
of.
when they're out of the jail, they're out as far as the county's involved.
Correct, they're no longer
Police
detained by
sheriff's
the.
involved.
Correct.
Then, I want to mention the body scanner. The equipment was purchased, I think, in 2017. Just like anything else that's computerized, all the software it's starting to nickel and dime us to, $3,000 for this, and, so the company basically what they want to sell us is an upgrade where we keep the shell of the machine. They come in and replace all the internal moving parts and all the computer software and everything else, which is basically a brand new machine. So it will be so they're currently selling that machine for like $120,000 to $140,000. They can do the upgrades for $90,000. I mean, it gets used several thousand times a year.
So how soon are you looking for approval on this?
I got the guy coming Friday to fix it.
No, I'm not finished. I'm not finished.
Yeah.
Well, if you wanted to put it on next week's.
Yeah, I mean, can we have like a week to
Absolutely.
look it over and tweet it a little bit and see if we have any
However long you
questions?
need.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that all you need from us out of this money, April? Is there anything?
I think it's a good start. Like I said, I think you should only spend $1 million a year. I don't know, maybe I'll answer someone does, how much is coming in so that you can have a sustainability plan.
That is a really
Because
good
we're
question.
getting some cuts and we've already told our agencies, don't ask for any more money and you probably get less because the cuts were there. And I already just didn't replace a staff member as a planner and I knew this was happening. So I can't cut any more administratively. So this will be good to have more help in the drug realm because the epidemic has not stopped.
I know that the sheriff was talking about maybe owing a resource officer going to schools, talk about drugs and stuff like that. Could that come out of this program or could we use, that money to fund that person also?
Or
That's,
could that person be the one that handles the
inmate.
the inmate community service projects when he's not out there cleaning the roadside on a rainy day or whatever going into schools? Be the same person?
it's allowable under the abatement strategy. I don't know what the plan was. I would not recommend someone going to do the DARE program. There's no evidence that that works.
I didn't hear what you
The
said.
DARE program has no evidence behind it working. I don't know what program they were talking about doing.
So commissioners, I think that you definitely need to answer what, April was saying. There really is no algorithm per se of what the continuous annual flow of funding is gonna be. We do know that it is gonna be over 18 years. That is correct. I mean, that is what, One Ohio is saying, that the distribution will be over 18 years. However, they don't really provide the breakdown of what that's going to be, and that is a little bit of the problem. 55% is set aside for One Ohio Recovery Fund. 30% of funding goes directly to townships, villages, cities, and counties, so we would fall into that, 30%. And then 15% goes to the state of Ohio to be used to leverage statewide buying power. So unfortunately, there's no spreadsheet that shows you're gonna get an annual allocation of 1 million or 2 million or 3 million. So I do think you need to do a little bit more research if we can around that, because again, $1 million to start up, no big deal, but it's that sustainability factor. We just want to make sure that you have the sustainable funds, because these are jobs that they're creating. That's my only concern.
That is what I.
And if it dries up, we're
What I'm
responsible to
concerned-
let that person go or.
Well, and they're union, so there's a key point that he said, that's why I wanted to really hone in on that, they're union, so I mean, obviously, well, not all of them, they.
Only one
wouldn't be
position.
union, But still, I mean,
Officer.
right, and to lay off in the union, you have to have a lack of funds or a lack of work, so, just keep those things in mind along the way.
Well, and you have 3 million there, so this was a 3-year plan.
Yeah.
And like the contracts that our board does, their annual contracts, we give 120-day notice. They know if the funding doesn't come, they don't get recontracted with. I mean, all of those safeguards.
Well, and
And we're
we
always ready for
if
new
we do the
grants.
body scan, we're not gonna do one every year, so
Right. No, yeah, I know.
that's a one-time.
I've got 6 of us on staff.
So
writing
basically what
grants.
they're saying is the 3 million that we have now will be dedicated to this program for 3 years. That's what.
Unless we can find other grant
Yeah,
funding
that's
streams
what-
to
that's what
potentially
they're
help
asking.
with
Okay.
it.
So
So they're saying. it's
out of
at
this
least
pot
$1
of
million a
money,
year.
we don't have anymore. We
Right.
Go with this one.
So
Until the
let's
dollars
take a
come in.
weekend, research and think, maybe meet April 1 and come up with a long-term plan.
I wish they were more clear on how much that would be extremely helpful, but can't force it.
Well, with that, we have a guest here that's also opiate related that wanted to present. I met with her last week. And Phyllis, why don't you come over and introduce yourself and give you the floor.
Commissioners, Bill Danso, Prosecutor's Office. I don't mean to interrupt, but before you start, I want to just make sure the commissioners are clear on, when there's been a lot of people coming in to give presentations and things like that lately, which is great for the board's information, but just keep in mind that 30786, the purchasing statute for the county, does include also the requirement to bid out for services. It does exempt certain professional services, one of which is a consultant. So if you're looking at consultants to come in and interview, that's an exception right in the statute. Otherwise, though, I think you guys do need to be cautious for people who are not consultants, that you would need to go through a competitive bidding process for services that you contract out for. So I just wanted to kind of lay that out. I'm not saying that you shouldn't interview consultants and people that you think would be helpful in that role, but I just kind of want to make sure that you're not moving too far forward and losing track of that requirement for competitive bidding.
Sure.
Thank you. Well, Commissioner Malloy, thank you for the opportunity to join the meeting today, and Commissioner Smith as well. Thank you for hearing out today. My name is Phyllis Gaskev. I'm the market president of Private Media. Private Media is co-founder of the National Opioid Action Coalition, and I oversee an opioid abuse prevention network. We have been working with communities and counties across the whole state of Ohio and other states, and putting forth, providing community outreach, public awareness, and education programs to help connect those who are in need to the local resources that are available, including right here in Trumbull County. What we're finding is with the communities that we're working with, commissioners working with, through those opioid settlement funds, they're funding these programs, that there's so many people who are affected by opioid and substance use disorders who do not know where to go for help. And that's where we come in to be that voice to connect those to the resources using means. We have the ability to do data-driven marketing programs to identify highly effective areas and those who need to be communicated to through different means where we're reaching people where they are at any time at the right time through social media. For example, we're working with a couple of counties right now where we have a program where we're connecting with youth who are in need of crisis with mental health issues. The program's called MRSS, it's Mobile Responsive Services. And with that, a child, family that is in crisis can call a number and immediately have help come right to their home. And so that's been highly effective. We're using social media platforms like Snapchat and Twitch, where we know that that's where that youth is utilizing and they're engaging with the most, so that we can be highly effective at reaching those target audiences. And so we've been highly effective in being able to communicate and connect those who so need help to the resources that are available that they don't even know or are aware of. So I'm asking today for a partnership with the county and working with the Mental Health Recovery Board and your partners to help build more of the awareness of the serious condition that we have right here in the county with substance use disorders. There's just so many different synthetic opioids that are out there that need to be made aware of too, where people just are innocently getting their hands on something that could be deadly, especially with our youth. And so being that voice and having the track record to be able to share our best practices, we'd love the opportunity to work with you to help curb the opioid epidemic and the stigma that comes along with that too.
Phyllis, so iHeart, the media group. So they have a program that is social media based, or is this through marketing over, the airwaves, or how's that work?
It's everything. So we have the ability to identify your highly effective areas here in the county, the target audiences that we're trying to reach, whether that be youth, whether that be older adults. We know that there's a serious issue right now with our older adults who are now misusing opioids that are innocently being prescribed them to their doctors. And that could be a number of different reasons, maybe due to their aging or just their bodies are changing and they can't handle that amount of drugs. And so they get addicted. And so that is another area where we're able to target and start messaging. And the way we start messaging is through a number of different means. It might be through radio announcements, it could be through digital ads where we're serving that right to your phone, so that if you are in need of help, you have a message being sent right to you. You can click on an ad and go right to your home and health services, or flying high if you're looking for help to get back into the workforce. And the more important thing is a little easy awareness, because people just don't know how serious this issue is. And if we don't do something about it, it's going to be.
I would agree with you there, but I guess the thing is when you're working with, our other entities, our departments here, cost factor, how does that work into the, into the cost of this program? Do you have in other words, what does this
What is it?
cost?
Look like cost? Sure.
Yeah, I mean,
have a whole
I-
plan.
it's
So I originally met with Commissioner Malloy and we had talked through a proposal, and he had asked me to come back to listen to what April her needs were, and then look at a way that we might be able to work together. And so based on that, I got a strategic plan to support what April's asking.
Well, one thing that kind of appealed to me on this too is I've been here 3 years and I don't know all the ins and outs of every program that April does. I know she does a wonderful job and everyone says, hey, firm April. I get calls from grandmas all the time. My grandson's on drugs. I can't afford it anymore. It's ate my social security. Commissioner, can you help me? I get that all the time. Refer them over to April. That's all we can really do with that. And there are grandparents out there all over this valley that are lost their retirement funds to grandkids that ate up with drug money, lying to them about whatever it is. And, the whole typical opiate, heroin thing right now that have drained bank accounts of people all across this whole county. And what I envisioned through what she has with the media that she has and the proposal she had is us as commissioners sponsoring this program, but we are promoting her. We're promoting where to go for resource, and we're kind of directing and marketing to the program that we already have in existence or the other programs we have. Because that literally people don't think, well, maybe there's there's a levy we pay for, let me find that person. But they do see if they're just on TikTok and they're on one of these social media platforms or on the radio or public service announcements on Facebook or television that shows that, Trumbull County, we care about our citizens, we have these programs, we have this levy money. So it's just more of an awareness thing of something simple to get in people's heads that if they got the question, they act on it. They don't sit on it. They don't wait until it's out of control. If they start seeing, especially I'm thinking with the elderly generation and the grandparents that are getting abused by the addict, they're getting abused by the problem. Those are the ones suffering the most, I think, because eventually they hit a point where they're losing their houses and everything else because of the actions of possibly a grandchild or a son or a daughter that has been struck by this and just bleeds their own bank accounts out now. It's affecting the relatives and the families. And they don't really know who to call. They don't want to deal with it. They're not used to dealing with it. They just want help of some sort and they don't know there is help out there that could help them in many different ways. So that's all it was, is awareness.
So now the next question is considering that, and that being a promotional based type of, not promotion, but publicity
Community outreach.
and promoting these departments. Can some of this, and I don't want to take monies away from April, I know we're looking at all this. That's fantastic. Can some of those opioid monies be used in this awareness program? The fact that we are going out and publicly announcing.
That's what I was thinking about first, before I saw this proposal today with money, I was thinking,
Well, I'm
we
saying
got this
maybe
money
there's-
sitting here, we need to put it to work to let people know.
Here's what I would say. I know April, you probably, we want to use as much money as we can towards these programs. But me being in the entertainment business, I know that you need to publicize and promote those areas. I mean, you could have the best situation in the world, nobody knows about it and they don't utilize it. So in this case, I would agree that I personally see that there is a good objective here concerning publicizing what April and the sheriff and these, what we have to offer. But if they don't know where to go, in other words, you're getting the phone call, I'm getting the phone call, we're trying to direct them, but it's not on a large base,
And I don't want April to use her money to expand her marketing with the money she already has. She's already got it to use.
We have a marketing firm. We have the Alliance for Substance Abuse Prevention. We get outreaches from marketing people every week. How much money of the settlement did iHeartRadio get to actually do some of this promotion?
We did not get any. We've gotten them through working with partnerships with the commissioners and other counties, where they see the value and have seen that. I agree with you 100%, Commissioner Hernandez. That is exactly what's happening in other counties, where they're directing some of those funds to us to help be that arm for the community
Direct them.
outreach. It's directing opioid settlement funds.
Well, and
for
we,
community outreach.
again, I have 11 staff, so we direct people to the Health Network website, that has a list of all the substance use addiction agencies. We do radio, TV, so forth. We have a small amount of marketing. I don't put a lot of money into marketing because people are in crisis. People are in crisis. I need, we're unfortunately funded at a level where we're dealing with crisis first. But no disrespect, but there are 20 other firms out there wanting the money to do the same thing I already with. So maybe if you give me your proposal, we could compare them to everyone else's, like Attorney Danzo said. You can't just, say, okay, we
Right.
pick you. And also I need to make sure it doesn't duplicate the marketing I'm already doing and paying. And, when you promote a program, I know a lot of those websites, you'll see, call this number, but our agencies have told me time and again, if they don't pay to that agency that's saying, call this number for addiction treatment, you see it on the TV, it's pay to play. So Coleman, Compass Valley, all of them have to give them $10,000 to get their name listed so that if somebody calls in, they might get the referral. And we had Glen Bay do this pay to play for a year. they didn't get one referral. I mean, so it's very difficult to manage. Everybody can put things out on social media and TV, but who's vetting the agencies to say this agency is gonna do you harm and this one's not? I mean, there's so much to it, so that's why we're very careful about marketing and only putting on my brochure and my website agencies that this board contracts with, because I vetted them. They're CARB certified, they're HIMAS certified, I've been there. They've been building a relationship and doing treatment in the community for years. And we know they're doing good work, and if they're not, who are they gonna come after? The deep pockets of. So we're very risk adverse with who we promote through these different digital campaigns and so forth. So there's a lot more to it instead of just, call your profile, don't do that anymore. Call 211 and then you'll get the list of resources that people need. So I think there's a place at the table for everyone, but we have.
Clearly, there needs to be some education thing, because if I'm even referring to the wrong place.
No, I help them, I do, I'm just kidding.
How does 78-year-old grandma out there that's worrying about how she's gonna pay her rent and her
I know, I can't help her
grandkids
with
just say I
that.
need
Yeah. I
$200
can't.
for
Well, I think what April's is maybe suggesting, if she's not, I am, that you get your proposal, you get with April, and then let's see where we go from there.
Sure, and April, we appreciate your concern and, no disrespect. iHeartMedia is co-founded the National Opioid Action Coalition. We co-founded that 4 years ago because we saw the plight the opioid epidemic was having across the country and in our communities, and knowing that we be that voice, and also to artists that we represent, we're going through their own struggles, that we could use those stories to help reduce the stigma, but also we're very, our company is very committed to giving back to the community. So we saw that opportunity to go into the communities and raise that awareness and connect those who are in need to those resources. And we have the data behind that. So we have the technology to be able to identify, and as far as tracking calls to call centers, calls that are missed, calls that are taken, how much website traffic is coming through. So when you're talking about that data and having to pay to
We
play,
get all that through Health Network locally.
I understand that, but we can buy that too versus really from a cost, and that's important to us. And I'm happy to show you our plan for that and the results that we've gotten so far. We work with partners like Home and Health Services, the MRS program that we're doing right now. It's been highly effective for them. The fact that we're renewing it and doing in other parts of the region now too with us too. So you might have been made aware of the mental health recovery board, and our governor just announced that they're providing this MRS service now across the whole state. And they see the importance, our state sees the importance of how important it is to raise awareness of mental health issues and connect those to the help that they need through 988, the local resources that are here. That's where we come in to be that voice and to have those connections to all the different target audiences and populations that we're trying to reach, and also speak in culturally relevant ways to, we have expanding populations that need to be communicated in a different way. And so we've been highly successful being able to do that too. And I'm just asking for the opportunity to work with the county, because we see the need that's here and in all our counties to raise awareness, first of all, because people still do not know how serious this opioid epidemic is. And it's right here in our own backyard. You talk about the grandparents who've been devastated by both financially and emotionally by the toll it's taking on them to care for their families now after going into retirement, now to have to come back and care for children because maybe their adult children are having issues of their own. But this is where we come in to help connect all those people who are in need, may not even know where to go.
Have you met with Lauren Thorpe, my associate director, the director of the USF Coalition?
No, I have not.
Maybe.
Well, we can talk,
You have your card, Phyllis?
Yes, I do.
How about?
Yeah, we'll talk.
Okay. Phyllis, thank you.
Thank you all. I really appreciate
Commissioners,
it.
do you have any other questions? You good?
With that, no,
Phyllis?
perfect, no,
Okay.
appreciate
Yeah,
you coming.
let April,
Okay.
give it
Yes,
Taylor. Give it Taylor, no trades.
Jim?
All right, commissioners, so I got here, I just need one signature from each of you.
Jim? Welcome.
Jim Taylor with the Painters and Allied Trade. I have some concerns, some questions, and hopefully some requests of help. Like everything else here, everybody's been looking for money. About a year ago, I was in, with the Trumbull County engineer, the Trumbull County Fairgrounds, senators and state reps, to get some funding for renovation of the grandstand. From my understanding, it was $500,000 of the award that the state has given the grant. The way the grant was prepared that the commissioners would come up with $125,000, additional $125,000. The fair board would come up with $125,000 to do three things: put LED lighting inside the stadium, paint the stadium, the grandstand, and then also put an LED screen on the outside of the grandstand. So in this portion of the project, I believe the LED lighting had been done, awarded. 3 months ago, I talked to her, and I was told that A1 Industrial Painting was awarded this project and it was moving forward. My understanding or assumption of that was that this project was put out to bid. Scope of work, most projects are. After quite some time and not hearing anything, I had reached out to Barry several times to find out what's going on with the contracts, et cetera, and no return phone call. At that point, I reached out and found out that Nick's Painting was given this contract. Contract on the painting was probably up in that $300,000. The underside of the stadium, the grandstand, we're gonna get painted as far as the steel, the exterior, the interior also. So I've been involved in this project. I've supported this project with the Old Fair Board past president. And in projects previous to this, there were some questionable contractors that had done projects out there. Went out and talked to the fair board. If you remember the restrooms that were out there, there was a contractor that poured the concrete floor, which ended up cracking, and there's like about a 3/4 inch gap out there. So there was constant discussion with getting qualified contractors. Glad Bill Danzo brought up the competitive bid process. I think that should be a part of it as well. And I'm assuming that this $300,000 project would be prevailing wage, so you need a coordinator, et cetera, et cetera. So, and I'm not saying that I understand the fair board takes care of that, but I also understand that there's a need to make sure that these entities are being following the process correctly. I did research. There was 2 contractors that I knew about on this project: A1 Industrial Painting and Nick's Painting. Under Nick's Painting, had some research done with the state of Ohio building trades. And Nick's Painting Company is not enrolled in the good standing with the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Comp Drug-Free Workplace Program at the present time. Under ORC 153-.03, the companies are supposed to be a part of that to actually get awarded or before any contract is picked out. I have this information. I'll leave this with you. There's a lot of questions I have, a lot of, so like I said, there's been projects, like I said, the re-roofing of them buildings down there with the metal roofing. Contract was given out to an unqualified contractor. They ended up putting in the wrong screws. That corrugated metal roofing had buckled. The whole purpose of trying to have relationships and discussion with entities is to say, hey, look, there are qualified contractors or unqualified contractors, okay? If these contractors are just gonna be handed out to.
Jim, are you, sorry, Julie Green, before you go on, and I
Yeah,
appreciate,
no, I'm
you know, I'm a.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
all
right.
So My question is, when were these supposedly awarded? Because if this is county money, it has to go through the commissioner's journal. It has to be awarded. It's county property. There's no way they could just hand out a $300,000.
Well, this was a grant requested by the fair. Board.
So the
Okay.
fair.
So the fair board, yeah.
Okay.
So
A grant
But-
for who, though?
there was other monies that were supposed to be there was supposed to be that,
Even if it's through
That
the
process.
ARP, they still have
No,
to
this
follow.
was Sandy O'Brien.
no, Sandy O'Brien, Santucci.
This was non-county.
Got it. Then we have no control over that.
Okay,
Sorry,
we don't
I'm
have
just
any,
asking.
that's right, and that's why I'm asking for the commissioners. Commissioners obviously are involved with the Trumbull County Fairgrounds.
Mhm.
And so, yes, I understand that there's not direct control
Right.
with that, like other entities.
Yeah.
But them entities still come to these commissioners and
Sure.
request funding, they request certain things, and if they're not following some kind of bid process, I would have, I have issues in that.
Nonprofit. You know, it's a Trumbull County Agricultural
It's
Society.
it's a statutory agricultural society, but they are independent of the county structure essentially.
Yeah, but we own the building and grounds.
Correct.
Okay, so.
So even if they build
So
the
here's my
building
question
with
to
the
you.
capital,
What would you like? Would you like a meeting between the commissioners, the fair board and the bidder? I mean,
That'd be fine, if there's documentation that they can hand out bids, I will definitely not be as supportive if they choose to use these contractors that that they've had in the past, some of these unqualified contractors,
well, my
So-
opinion, it should be a fair and open bid process.
That's what I would think as well.
Okay, and everybody should bid the same thing, we gotta make sure that was all done. Okay, and then we go from there. But
Right, I called Barry after Jim had called last week, and Barry said they did bid it. Mike McCaslin was the guy who was handling it, who's a fair board member, I believe,
I know, right?
and he said that, A1 was the lowest. But he said that the lowest and best is what they went by, and they said that Nick's, after interviewing both parties, the way they were gonna paint, the type of paint they were gonna use, from what they witnessed there, they viewed them, and I'm saying it's the board, their board members viewed them as the best, so that's who they decided to go with. I said, well, we need to see the whole bid process. We wanna meet with Mike and Barry, which he texted me and said, give me a time and a day for Mike McCaslin and I to come down and meet about the painting the grandstand. I asked him to come today. He said he had a doctor's appointment today, so he couldn't be here today. So I did say we need to have a meeting on this thing to make sure they did everything right with it first and foremost. He did understand the building trade's concern, but he said that from their research of their fair board members, they had their reasons that they didn't want to go with this A1, that it was more of a, in their opinion, quality of work thing rather than a price thing, which they disagreed on the quality of work versus one versus the other, which that's where we need to see that they dotted their i's, crossed their t's, and if it is autonomous, that they can make that decision with their board members, we can offer our opinion on it or whatever, but we don't want to, we want to make sure the process is fair all the way around for everybody.
I was there whenever the contractor went out there. I'd like to see that public, where it was
Sure.
put out to the public, because, and the scope of work that was required in this, because scope of work gets done, they tell you what kind of paint to use. They tell you what kind of lighting that they're gonna use. If you're gonna use something outside of what is in the scope of work, you can request that. But it's whether a contractor is gonna use one paint or 5 paints, what I can tell you is that under Dodge, which is a construction network where people go to do bids, and Construct Connect, there are multiple pages through A1 that is actually bid on multiple projects. And I have that here for you too. But I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, almost 5 pages of one contractor. And this is on Construct Connect, everything that was bid out from A1. Nick's Painting, there's no record of them bidding anything through Dodge or construction, which would give you the level of what kind of painting contractor that would be.
Julie Green, another question.
Sure.
I'm somewhat familiar with the capital budget procurement process, but I don't know how that applies to non-governmental entities. But it's my understanding with governmental entities, there is no interviewing people ahead of the award process. That's not allowed at all. Correct? Am I wrong?
If you're using competitive sealed proposals, there is a process for that. If you're professional design, there is a process. Generally competitive bidding, there is not. That's at least the county rules, I'll put it that way. You know, I'm
I don't
not
know if it applies.
an
to-
expert on fair board agricultural
Yeah,
societies. I
yeah,
admit, we don't
that's what I-
represent them.
I understand. I just wanted to say that because I don't know if that is spelled out in their capital budget agreement. There has to be something in writing somewhere that dictates, I know there is, because we had one for these steps that were done at the Trumbull County Soil and Water building last year. Do you remember that, Commissioner?
Yes.
So there's an actual written agreement that tells you exactly how to spend the money. And to your point, if you don't have a scope of work that is defined before you put it out for bid, you can't really bid on the same thing.
Right, so, and that's part of that problem. Whenever this came out, and this happens a lot of times, a company will come out and they'll give an estimate, okay, so then that kind of gives, an individual a ballpark of what they're gonna go ask for from the state, okay, so that's allowed, hey, look, you're gonna replace it, and they kind of give that definition of, these are the things. Whenever you just walk someone through and they tell you something that, yeah, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that, that doesn't qualify. And so I've been in contact, obviously, with the reps, about this. They're watching this closely as well. They want to know where their dollars that are getting donated to the Trumbull County Fairgrounds.
Why don't we try to set up a meeting for next Tuesday at our workshop with the fair board and yourself and Nick Spanning also, if he wants to be here, and let's get it out in the open and get all your answers, get all your questions answered. You all right with that?
I don't think Nick's painting necessarily has to be here, but I mean, if that's the case, and you want.
We're gonna have one, we need
You want me to bring Jack Malis there to give his, extensive, painting knowledge on, his company, then I could do that as well.
Has the board already awarded these contracts?
I don't know. I wasn't, I was told that,
It might be too
I was
late.
told as much that Nick's painting had it, as much as I was from Bill Hart that A1 Painting had it. So I have not seen any documents.
I think, I don't think they've done anything with it either, because I think the impression I got when I talked to Barry was not like an uh-oh, but like okay, well, we need to look at this more and let me get with Jack and let's figure this thing out type of thing. So I think we might have got it early in the process. He may have brought it to attention early enough in the process that maybe they haven't yet, but we'll see. I'm surprised over last week I didn't get a call about the meeting. They were supposed to, this was what day was that last week? Thursday?
Yeah. Two pictures?
No, I think it was last week because it was.
Yeah, it was almost a week
ago, yeah.
So, and he said he's gonna get with this guy right away, and it was like, we'll meet with you anytime, let's get this, we'll get a meeting, we'll explain it all to you, and then I didn't hear anything, so.
Well, here's my concern is one time they said that the county's building maintenance supervisor has the okay to say it. And now they're saying that the fair board has the okay. So how did the county even, how did we ever get involved? I mean, either we have, we have the county maintenance supervisor who told Jimmy's person that he had the contract, and then now you have the fair board that's telling somebody else that they have it, so.
But it is our buildings, but I think it's the other stuff Bill was involved in because it was our money, our grant money we were given
That would
there.
be my question.
This coming in from the state was.
Who has the right to pick out the payment for that? Is the county or does the fair board?
Bill Danso, prosecutor's office. Forgive me, I'm going totally by memory here, and it's been a long time since I've really dug into depth on this, but my recollection is that once, technically speaking, once a Board of Commissioners transfers the use of a fairgrounds to an agricultural society, which is our Trumbull County Fair Board, they do become responsible for even the county's infrastructure and buildings on that property. And I believe that's even in the lease that you guys have with.
But we had to upgrade their electricity last year when the telephone poles were falling over.
You
We
guys
paid
are
the
giving
30
them
grand.
grindings
Right.
out there. at the
What I
fair
was
as
going
well.
to say, though, is that even though it does become their responsibility, the statutes don't prohibit the commissioners from continuing to support the fair board, the fairgrounds with county money, with services like that. So, you know, technically speaking, I think under the law, it does become the primary responsibility of the fair board, but the commissioners are still permitted to make those improvements if it chooses to do so. And one of the reasons too is that even though the fair board also has insurance, I believe Corsa and our insurance for the county still covers events at the fairgrounds buildings themselves. So there's an interplay there, is I guess the bottom line.
And Julie Green, yeah, and Trumbull County Agricultural Society, if they are the grantee, that's their name written into the grant agreement. Then the monies go directly to their personal funds. They don't go through our county munis system.
Yeah, this money that came from Senator O'Brien didn't come to us.
No, I understand.
But wait a minute, the grant that was written up also had in there that the commissioners were gonna come up with just telling you.
We don't know anything about that. That was never discussed once, I can
I'll
tell you.
Senator O'Brien and see if I can get them documents.
Yeah, I read about that grant that the Fair Board got in the newspaper. There was no match, there was no LED, anything that was ever presented to our Board of Commissioners. That was something that was done.
Perhaps they were counting the ARP funding that they were already getting. That's my guess.
I think so.
That's possible.
They probably just stated that, because you had already allocated, I don't know, $2 million to them over of ARP money in the last.
Yeah, but those were all delineated what they were for.
Right.
An
but-
LED screen and an LED lighting was never brought up ever until we read about it again. Run Sandy O'Brien's grant.
I don't know.
Well, I guess that's the thing, I'm just looking for them questions to kind of maybe if the commission.
And that's easy. I mean, we have a meeting and lay it all on the table. Bill, hopefully you can be there to
Are
moderate.
we gonna do it at our workshop next Tuesday? Instead of having a special date for it, we just air it out next Tuesday.
I guess we can request that at the end of next
If they
Tuesday's
can't be
meeting.
here- If they can't be here, we'll let Jimmy know. All right?
Yeah, we should have Mike Slawinski, like she said, we should have our new maintenance supervisor and just establish that, and then Bill could do some of the background work on who has the authority to do what. Unfortunately, put you on the spot, Bill, but
Well, I think the good news in that case is I think that I have an opinion that I did in the past that's gonna answer a lot of that, so shouldn't be a problem.
and it isn't pitting one side against another where you're conflicted, you're
We don't
just
represent the fair
advising.
board, so that's not an issue at all there for us.
Okay.
I don't frankly know who represents the fair board. I'm assuming they have their own counsel, but I don't know who it is.
Oh, really?
I would think the grant
That
agreement
surprises me.
would spell out exactly what they're required to do.
Okay.
So I don't.
And we've never seen
From what
that.
I-
That's never been given us.
From what I understand, the money, it gets requested and it is, they allocate them monies, the 500,000. They're hoping that the fair board is gonna do what they say they're gonna do. Which will actually affect the future grants, just what I, straight from a state rep's mouth.
Well, yeah, that's not.
It seems a little,
ideal.
yes, yeah, exactly.
Still have to have a grant agreement for a state capital budget. We had one for a small $10,000 project. So if it's $500,000, I'm certain that they have a grant agreement.
Jim, we'll set up a meeting and try to set for next Tuesday, see if that works for your schedule, and
Yep.
I'll call you as soon as I talk to them and see if they can be here for that.
I'll leave that information and if you.
We'll make copies of
questions
that
on
for
it,
each of us.
That's fine. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Ben, do you have, or are you just spectating?
Supposed to be with him afterwards. I'm
Okay.
definitely not spectating,
I would like to remind the commissioners to tomorrow at 1 o'clock behind City Hall, the heritage tree planting. This is actually the first Trumbull County 250 commemoration event. So no more than a half an hour. Rick decides to speak longer, which I am sure he will not, but.
Well, you're gonna provide.
Hopefully, I'm gonna provide you with.
You're gonna provide the dialogue?
It's
Okay.
super short.
You got that?
That'll be great.
You got that, Mr. WKBN?
Yeah.
Tomorrow,
If
1
it were-
o'clock.
1 o'clock.
If it-
Behind City Hall.
Listen, If it were Commissioner Malloy, I would have to give him a 3-minute.
No, I'd say 5.
Okay, all right, now
Okay.
speaking of which, I
I'm
got
gonna
two
give-
things for us.
Oh, boy. Well,
Uh,
before you move on, I want to
yes.
speak more to this. So
Yes.
you tasked me with this.
Yes.
I've never done this before, but thankfully we have a great team here in Trumbull County that everybody agreed to participate. So Beth took care of marketing, Trumbull Neighborhood Partnership took care of planting the tree. The Historical Society actually drove to Columbus to pick up the tree because the state of Ohio, whoever is coordinating this, could not find a means of transporting the tree to Trumbull County at the last minute. So last Friday, Megan Reed and Ryan drove to Columbus to pick it up. So I just want to say, we have
It's
such great people in Trumbull County.
It's so much fun.
Yeah, we need to thank them for sure. Yes, drive to Columbus to get there.
Okay, what I have next, Valley Vision, we're meeting once a month. We just had our meeting, which both of you attended over at Bright. The next meeting is in Youngstown, Eastgate, but then they're coming back to Trumbull and they're looking for a place to meet in Trumbull. Bright, you saw the room, we were a little tight over there and they asked if we had any alternative buildings. They talked about maybe Valley Partners or something. I would like to see if we can use our Veterans Building. We got a beautiful brand new building with a big hall, and I think that's something we could showcase to the business community, economic community, and even the media that covers it. I think that'd be a great facility for us to do that. So when this meeting's done, I'd like to be able to call them and ask if we can secure their building to utilize for Valley Vision meeting on the odd months, or at least a couple of the odd months. If we want to travel to other places, that's great too. They wanted to move it around, but for right now, they're doing Eastgate, Trumbull, Mahoning. But I'd like to call, what's her name over there now? Director. Yeah, Gary, and see if those dates work for us to be able to utilize that building. We pay to clean it anyway. It's a building that's there and doesn't get as much utilization as other county buildings. I think that would be a fitting place for it.
Also, around that subject matter, Julie had mentioned planning commission would probably like to be involved in.
Yeah, we'll follow up with
And that-
whoever facilitates it. I believe somebody shared the information with me.
That,
I don't know, I don't recall the name,
Chris-
but we'll reach out to
Chris
them,
Thompson, Chris,
get added to their listserv.
I can send you the,
All you need for Valley Vision?
oh, you have it?
Yeah.
Josh Press does
I
the
found it.
That's the,
I know Josh.
invites.
Yeah, we'll reach out to them.
Okay, and then coming over to that, my next topic, Josh Press reached out to me again today. They submitted their proposal. We had him speak once. We had Kristen speak about the possibility of a consultant and using grant rating consulting lobbying firm. Bill, you just made some mention about that. Professional services like this, we could do what we're doing if we decided to contract with them without opening up to every consultant company out there.
As long as as long as you guys are using them as essentially as a consulting firm, then it's exempt under the plain language of 307-86. Now, consulting is a pretty broad category, but you have to be careful not to overdo what you use as a consulting service either. So I just would say, the board should keep in mind that if you go into services that wouldn't be considered consulting, you might have to consider doing some sort of, whether it's like we talked earlier, competitive sealed proposal that allows you to interview firms, or the traditional sort of competitive bidding for services. Also keep in mind though that right now the statutory threshold has gone up. It's, I think, 3% every year. So it's now, I think, $77,250 or so is the competitive bidding threshold. just again, those are things in any sort of contract you guys want to keep in mind.
What about grant writing? That'd be all right.
I guess that's the question. Are they doing this as a consultant for the county? And if the answer is yes, then you're okay,
And the name of the business is KO Consulting, but
Sure.
part of their business is grant writing, lobbying,
Yeah,
And they
direct.
may not write every grant, but they're be.
they're gonna advise advise on strategy, advise on things like that, again, it'd be something you guys have to, think about, make sure you're comfortable with, but that is an exemption.
Julie Green, I know I'm not a lawyer, Billy, but I don't think we can lobby as a county, can we?
We can. Asheville has a paid lobbyist, so does
You can.
Portage, yeah.
Then you can.
When they just got that 2 million in the Senate bill, or the 8.1 million, they used their lobbyists to do that. Asheville pays for an actual lobbying company. And from talking to CCAO, they told us they had, I think we had 24, it was either 24 or 34 counties had a paid lobbyist on staff.
Maybe I'm just thinking of it because if it's relevant to grant funding, a lot of the grants that I read the grant agreements for say that.
Prohibition on lobbying.
Correct. You have to sign that sheet too. That might be.
Okay.
The other thing was, we had talked about before was the bond issue. Are there prohibitions against using public funds and resources for supporting or advocating for bond issues? Just a question.
Yeah, Bill Danso again, 9.03, maybe. Again, totally by memory here, there's a prohibition on using public funds. It's the statute that talks about public subdivision newsletters, essentially. You can publish newsletters to tell you all the good things that are going on in your county and all that kind of stuff. But there are prohibitions as to supporting or opposing candidates, supporting or opposing levies. I can't remember the exact language. I know levies is in there. Is bond issues might
That's why I'm asking.
be. So there are some prohibitions in there that the commissioners should, be cautious of in any case where you're supporting or opposing a specific thing. I believe the Attorney General's office has been a little bit more enforcement minded on that in recent times. So I think it's something at least to keep in mind.
Okay, well, with that said, KO sent us an email and a written proposal they gave us price wise. And what they came in for the services that we had talked about that we had discussed, they were looking at $7,500 a month. Hearing what Bill had just said to us, I would like to contract with them to give it a try, and I think it's a no-lose situation. The first grant that we get that they help us with that brings back money to the county, I think if we countered back to them at $6,250 a month, that puts us at $75,000 for the year, which is under that 77 thing, just to prevent any type of possible conflict with that. And see if they would do the first year.
Did she break it down? Because
She did break it.
She broke
Yeah,
it
I
down.
was gonna say, that number doesn't, I'm sorry, it's not that number, we were looking at it, that number seemed a little off to me. I could have sworn there was a different breakdown.
Look at the
She did the
email and
breakdown.
when you had the services up that she put on
I
there.
didn't get it, but somebody asked me
I don't know if
about it.
I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Well, no, I did get the email and I thought, and commissioners.
Like there was so it was given to you as, if you do it this way, is
Right.
this much, just
Right.
so it was more of a,
I almost
you
thought,
pick which package you want.
exactly.
And then that would delineate what your monthly cost would
Yeah.
be. If that
For
makes sense.
3,500, they would attend meetings.
Right here, here's what it is. Fee
35.
structure.
We need to print it out and everything.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but here's if you look at it though. Consulting strategy, government affairs is 3,500. Strategic grant planning for departments, 2,000. Monthly grant proposal development was 2,000 a month. I took it as,
But you took it as the whole ball of wax, 7,500, but you couldn't.
I
so
think
you're thinking
Yeah.
maybe it's just 2,000.
those were your
Right.
three package options
Okay.
of it's either, you know, you choose package A, package B, or package C, because if you look at the description of what is in each one of those billing, it's a different package, right? So it's like the all-inclusive, semi-inclusive, and then like the coach package. Do you know what I mean? So your
Right,
choice, but
and like Julie knows about these things, she looked at that and probably would say,
and I haven't looked at it in depth either. I just know what
you
Julie
know,
had asked me a
there's
question
one
about.
where they would
I don't
help
have it.
you identify the grants and they would assist in a certain degree for 2,000.
Yep.
Then there's the 3,500, well, they'll
Yes.
come to your meetings and
No,
they'll, do we need that? I don't know, you
I
know?
believe the 3,500 included the subcontracting through K&O with Josh Press, with the
Right.
governmental entity.
Right.
So you really wanna look at,
Well, let's just print it out, we'll look at it, go from here. Let Julie look at it, we'll all look at it, you'll look at it.
Let's look at this over the next week, then the next week we can.
Office,
I
look
agree
at
with
it.
that. I mean, I do,
have the most informed.
I do
email.
like,
I think
I
we're
don't
all in
think
this,
it's a
we're all in
no-brainer.
agreement, you know, we wanna move forward.
They do.
I think that they do, I was impressed with the
Yeah,
presentation.
they do.
And I believe that they, in working with the departments, different departments can help and assist and, you know,
Yeah.
you're
I'll use them.
you're like the authority on grants.
For sure.
And Beth,
I
you
am
know about
the
grants.
authority on grants. Thank you for
But we need
recognizing that.
departments to be maybe made more aware of what's available, you know, and I think that they're
And I
gonna,
think time's of the essence with this now, because right out of the gate, we can get them working, because we have 4 earmarked things for the congressman's office. I'd love Josh to be working on it, to fly in, and between now and August, when they award those things,
When are you going to Washington?
that's in end of June. But July is when they announce the recipients, or they rate everything, and then you're supposed to have your grants by August.
Well, we may have
So-
another list for you.
And not to beat the budget horse, but next year, if we could be able to send the economic development director to the clients, I appreciate it. I don't know if we can use the OE to, but as you know, this year we don't have any funds for anything, so that's why we didn't sign up for any.
So what's it cost for him to go?
We have no money
Well,
in our general fund.
Yeah, but we have a little bit.
Right, and you know what? And I would be happy to room with them to save on the room.
Well, I don't know if
I don't think we
we.
have to do that, but.
I mean, if we want, you know, save on that, at least.
so does he, hey, does he realize it's only one double bed?
That's really nice, but I don't know.
One double bed, Commissioner.
I'll let Nick know that that's on the table.
Why don't we try to find out a
But
temporary,
that was-
whatever
I
it
was
costs,
thinking
and
it's a
maybe we
really
send
good
it down
idea.
there.
Yeah, I would love to have Nick there. When I saw people there last year, Nick should be there.
Yes, he should.
All right,
He knows everything there is to know.
I get it. I
about
understand.
development.
I mean, I agree, let's look at that very
I will.
closely.
I'll ask him. I mean, it's kind of close to it's a month away. He has to
It's
move
more than
forward.
that. I mean, we're only, April is not till June, end of June, so he's got 2
And
months.
then
Okay, I'll ask.
the good thing about him going, then, say next year you can't go, or somebody can't go, at least he could go and
We got continuity.
he's got.
Well, he
knows the
works
ins and
with
outs.
these people that are going on a regular
I don't have a
basis.
problem with that.
Yeah.
I think we need to work with.
He has an established relationship. We all do.
Okay,
There's a good
Casey's
idea
here.
to have.
Casey, do you have something? I'm sorry, you've been here.
How do you get back with us on a number?
You're probably falling asleep over there.
No. So on
Vacation?
vacation mode, yeah. Casey McDonough, 911 director. Just wanted to give you a brief update of some things that happened while I was gone. We got an updated quote from First Energy to move the electric. We need to do that for the tower to keep that going if and when we do vacate that location. Obviously, that tower's gonna still need to be powered up, but that's gonna need to be separated out. The quote from Bechtel Controls is $91,800, but that allowed a $9,000 charge for First Energy. I got an updated quote from First Energy for their portion of it, and it's 71, almost 7,200. So, or I'm sorry, 7,800, so about $1,200 cheaper than the 9,000 that they had allotted and included. I don't know if this would have to go out to bid because it's over that $75,000 threshold. If that's the case, then I'll need to get a hold of 3 electrical contractors.
Is it 911?
Well, there is the 911 there's the exception for the PSAPs and operating a PSAP, but I'm not sure
That's
if it's gonna
generally related
cover.
to kind of like 911 equipment as far as
Yeah.
like phones, telephony and stuff like that. So I think what we would need to do if you want to move forward on,
researching this is we would need to find, you know, 2 other commercial grade electricians and see what they would charge.
But I think you'd actually have to, if it's over 77,000, you actually would have to go out for a bidding process, not just 3 quotes. Unfortunately, it was, and it's close, but that close doesn't count.
Right. So that's gonna make that process even longer. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, the bid process itself is usually 60 days by the time you add and, you know, advertise and everything. So
Well-
that's kind of where that's at.
And then TC two, my only concern is that the bids are only good for so long, so unless you're willing to actually move on it. So that is, I think, what the board really needs to make, so obviously you're not gonna send her out to bid if that's not what they want to do, right? Because once you go out to bid and you are then looking to award a bid, you gotta move on it, so is it now, is it 6 months, I don't know, that's just, I'm just throwing that out
That's
there.
why I just wanted to let you guys kind of know, because that's obviously gonna be above my pay grade, that's gonna be something you guys are gonna need to talk about. I don't know what conversations have happened with, you know, the real estate agency of the hospital property. You know, I got calls while I was in North Carolina, and I referred them, you know, to the commissioners. The real estate agency says, you know, hey, we're not gonna shut power off. You know, I don't know how, we don't wanna get in a situation where 6 months down the road, we didn't do anything, and then we're in the same boat again, knowing that we have to eventually cut that power over. Obviously, in an ideal world, we'd just be, you know, able to leave that location and we wouldn't have to worry about that tower, but that's still gonna be part of the problem, because that's part of the county network. So that's kind of where it's at. I'll wait to hear from you, you know, if you want me to try to, you know, prepare going out to bid for that, once you know a timeline of moving forward. Additionally, the consultants are working with the architect to get that phase 1 proposal for you guys. I'm hoping to have that within the next week or 2. On, you know, getting the renderings of if we were to move forward, so you can utilize those with your potential new grant writer to try and find funds for us to move.
You're talking about the health.
Yeah, so that's the other part of the project. You know, so we have the consultants, we have the architects, so they're working together to figure out what the number would be to do to break down that original, you know, $250,000 project into phases of, okay, phase 1 is to do the consultant work to figure out what would fit in that space, what it would cost, to give you guys numbers, and then give those renderings that you would use.
Yeah, I
utilize-
personally don't wanna spend 100,000 if we're gonna have to make a move.
I agree.
Well, Commissioner, I think that what the suggestion here is that tower is going to need powered
No
there,
matter
even if they move.
Yeah, but eventually we're gonna tear that damn building down. We're not gonna maintain
Well,
that
I'm
tower
not
there forever.
Until you get a new tower, that's your choice.
Unless there's an alternate location that I don't know about, I would have to get with our radio vendors to see if the stuff that are at our existing tower could be moved to another tower.
And we're gonna spend $100,000, I'd rather put it into the tower, the new tower that we're gonna be using.
If you're gonna do that, if you're gonna put a tower at the fairgrounds, then could the stuff on our tower be moved to there? Me telling you, yes, I would think so. That would be up to the radio guys to say.
That's $1 million for a new
I was
tower.
gonna say, the new tower is like
Right.
roughly 1.2 million.
No matter how we look at it, it's not gonna be a cheap project, and unfortunately, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but from what I've gathered, just in some of these quotes I found, this has been known for multiple years, that electric needed to be separated out. And I don't think anybody really thought about the fact that that tower still needs power, because that's part of the county communications right now. And if you took that tower down right now and didn't put it anywhere, you would probably lose radio communications amongst several agencies. And let's be honest, our Marks coverage isn't the greatest anyway, so.
We knew, TC, I remember vividly, Bill Hart discussing this, and his number was significantly different, but we have found that to be the case with other things as well as the generator, which I'm glad that we looked into that further. But the number that was given to us as a ballpark, and I just remember from
It's like
conversations, was
150.
They kept saying 150,
That's what I was
150.
told.
I mean, yeah, 91,000 is obviously significantly different. However, no, they did, I mean, at least previous boards knew that tower, you can vacate 911, but that tower is what's providing services, cell services, call services. I mean, until we have another tower, that tower has to be provided electricity. It has to.
Yeah, I mean, if there's another tower amongst in the county that we can utilize.
But there's not,
You know,
that we
right
know of.
now, that I know of, there isn't. And then you look at, if we don't have a county-owned tower, I know you said, you know, $1 million to build a new tower. If you rent one, like we rent one, we pay over $36,000 a year just to rent space on a tower, so you're better off to put one up yourself. I think $1 million's a little high. I think the one I put up in Huron County years ago, obviously costs have gone up, but I think we were close to like $500,000, like 500,000.
We need to, well, that was Bill doing negotiation with someone. Now we need to get our new guys on it for a tower and get with Steve Christian from Eastgate or
Sure.
he's with
Yeah.
someone else now, but
So we need
we
to
had a
revisit.
consultant that was looking at that to put a tower there and said, hey, you get contracts with Verizon, contracts with AT&T, contracts with T-Mobile, and you pay for the thing.
Right, that's the other thing, you can lease space out to the telephone providers, or you could also, I mean, as much as in a perfect world, I would love to have all the funding in the world to move away from Mark's radios into our own county system, that would be much better radio coverage for all our providers. But that's the other option, is you could look at partnering with Mark's and splitting the cost with them like you did at the Brookfield site. I'm not a fan of Mark's, I've never had that, so.
We spend millions of dollars on marks, unfortunately.
Unfortunately,
Still.
but what you're doing is you're renting it. It's like renting a TV box. You're paying for that service and it's not the greatest service. You have firefighters that are in buildings that have no coverage. Every day I'm getting notices saying, hey, add an alert for this location, bad radio reception. You know, so what I did in Huron County, we spent $4.5 million, but that was 5 radio sites and we own it. It's our own mark system basically, but we own it. You can't come in and say, hey, Columbus has a big event, we're kicking you off because we need priority on this tower. And then additionally, you pay, once you pay off that 4.5 million, it's paid for.
Yeah,
Well, maintenance.
we had to put repeaters all over the place in Hubbard.
Yeah, and
I mean,
you will with
you
Mark.
can't even
Every
go-
single school will have to
There are
put a
three
VDA
teachers
unit in it as well. So that's why I'm not a proponent of it, but like I said, obviously, we're a county that's already financially strapped and have no money for 911, no money for corners, no money for a lot of things. In a perfect world, if you had some alternate source of funding, you would do your radio system and your 911 all tied to one, and then you don't have a fire department sitting here and a police department sitting here that can't talk to each other on the
Right.
radio.
They're carrying 2 different radios.
Exactly.
And
You're on an island.
Well, we'll definitely, when we hire that grant lobbyist consultant, that's gonna be one of the first projects. Okay.
So as soon as I have the
And we
consultant
don't
numbers
care,
for
you've
you,
been very patient, but just give us some time so we can figure out.
I did talk to the people from MPT the other day. They said they will never shut our service down. That building will always have power as long as they own it,
And I think
even if they have no
I
tenant.
think they both are very,
So.
I just want to give you an update on what I found. So I'll wait to hear from you guys on if you want to move forward with me trying to go out to bid for moving the electric. And then I'll
Just
also,
give us some time.
Yeah.
to Figure out what.
that's why I said I'll wait to hear from you guys. So I won't bug you about that anymore. And then when I get an update from the consultants for the other portion of the project for getting the renderings and stuff like that, I'll bring those to
So
you
what
guys.
you're telling us, we're gonna have to do that tire regardless.
Unless you have an alternate location for that tower equipment. I mean, if you do the fairgrounds one, obviously, I would think that could be moved there and still service the entire county, but that would be something Bearcom would need to come in and do their radio studies.
Yeah, but if we could spend $1 million and upgrade that tower, then why move it,
You wouldn't.
right?
Well, you would need to upgrade that tower. You would only need the
You need
90,000
the
to do the
new-
That's what
electric.
I'm saying.
Correct.
But then,
But you also still need a tower potentially, you know,
In Cortland, we still
in
need to
Portland.
do that one won't work when they're over Cortland. We need to,
Right.
they can do
Or
temporary.
if Portland, I mean, maybe somebody could, I don't know, is Portland have any plans? Has anybody spoken with Portland? I mean, they are potentially building this $2.2 million safety services.
There
So-
were
are they-
rumblings when we talked about moving to Portland,
Yeah.
that they may be willing to be partners
Because
with
how are
us.
they gonna, right, they're gonna need some sort of,
That they
They're
may be
gonna need
willing
a
to be
tower.
partners with us on some type of radio tower to where we could just utilize that. That would be talks that you guys would need to have with, you know,
With the mayor?
with their city officials and everything, but they seem very willing to want us there, so I think they would be agreeable to help us as much as they could. I don't know, you know, what funding they got. I know they did get that.
Yeah.
For their main stuff, so.
Yep. and I mean, I'm not saying they're gonna pay for it 100%, but
No,
I mean, if they're
but it might
gonna
be
be
something where
utilizing it or need
State
it.
capital budget is what they have, and that's coming up again at the end of the year,
Mhm.
just for FYI, if you want to apply for this. This would have been a perfect, I think, project for an appropriation request as well, but all of those are closed.
And unfortunately, what you sent me with what, I think we had 3 days to like try to send that in.
Yeah,
You need a plan, and
yeah,
I can't pull a plan out of that, you know?
yeah, I know. They don't give you much lead
Yeah.
time. to-
I mean, in a small tower like what we have in our office,
That's
could
why
be
we're
a
gonna
lot
have-
cheaper.
Once we hire
Have a
this,
grant
Yeah.
this, yeah, we're gonna have.
to
plans in
identify
place.
those.
This is where the bigger thing, like we had the earmark thing, but each congressman's only allowed to have 5 appropriations. And I heard Congressman Joyce has over 60 requests already, so we're not gonna get, I mean, he's got
But we're the
from Lake
sec-
County, Geauga, and Ashtabula.
Well, there's 5 counties and we constitute 25% of his population, so we should get 25% of the appropriations, in my opinion. I like it.
That'd be 2 if he gets 5,
Whatever,
1.5.
better than none, so 25% of the money, not the number of projects.
Great.
Okay,
Fair,
just wanted to
fair.
give you an update.
Thank you,
Thank
Tate.
you.
That's just my opinion.
Okay. Commissioners, we need a motion.
I have something real quick. Right. Mr. Press, inquired about letters of support for YARS. Lisa wants to know if she can put that on the agenda tomorrow. It's in regards
Oh,
to
she
moving their
wanted
fire
that today
station.
before today's meeting
What?
too.
Moving their fire station or putting a fire station on base and
They want our,
I know
they want our,
Something I was gonna say.
that's the word I'm looking for.
Sorry.
if you,
Letter of support
Letter of support,
to do, at the Youngstown Airport.
yeah,
How do we,
where is
did they
that?
get it from
We all
Mahoney
got
County
that
also?
email.
Yeah, and what they're doing is they're asking Congress, it's not through an earmark, it's through some other thing that they're gonna do to upgrade the fire station, which is millions of dollars. But by having the new planes there, they said they need a new fire department to be capable to handle. It all goes hand in hand. They said this is kind of an essential thing, although it's, I think, tens of millions, maybe.
Probably,
It's a lot. It's a ridiculously high number.
but the LSC at 130J is $1 billion.
Right.
I think, so it's worth it.
So, but they want to show community support that we support them enhancing their fire department on the
Absolutely.
base.
Yeah, and I had that I can't find the email, what it is, but
If you send it to me, I'll work on it for you if you'd like, because
That would be great.
that's under our mission as well, is to support and sustain the Youngstown area. And I was just heading out, Julie Green, but I have one more request, Commissioners, Zach Svet had asked me to follow up with you on his request from last week. See where you were with that.
Metro Parks,
Yes.
someone said that those numbers, those figures weren't correct.
Okay.
What he was saying, I saw,
So,
does anybody know what it's gonna cost us or where we're at with that?
Well, did you get the last email from him that he had the breakdowns? It was more money than what was said here. But I mean,
I didn't look at them that closely.
it was like 70. What did it, I'm getting all these emails, but,
It's like 80,000 or something.
Zachary.
And part of that is if we don't give him the requested amount, then we have to end up paying like 1.4 million back. Is that true?
It's not just the 1.4 million, Commissioner, it's the 25 years, it's tens of millions of dollars that will be basically, in my opinion, wasted. Resources, time, money, if our section of the bike trail is not completed. But again, that is completely up to the commissioners to support or not support.
So what's our obligation once this section is completed? And what are we obligated for after that? Just
Long-term
maintaining it?
maintenance.
That's it. Does anybody know what that cost is?
I don't have those figures, that's not under my authority, but I could
I can't even,
talk with Zach.
I just think we need to know that.
I can't find
Yeah,
it.
well, I think Zach had asked at last week's meeting to be able to work with KO Consulting. As you know, he's solo. And he has applied for and received several grants. So that would, I think, be helpful to the metro parks if the commissioners are willing to support them. I know that there's still some outstanding issues.
Part of what, depending on what we choose to do.
Yeah,
Is that assistance for these departments. I mean,
There is a bill in the House too, just to bring it up, that I just read that Senator Catrona has a bill that's going through right now that restructures all the park boards. The appointments, takes the appointing authority away from probate judges, gives it to the commissioners, and then the commissioners appoint the park boards from there and have more autonomy over the park board. And that's already passed out of committee, and that's into a Senate bill now, which could change the whole game with park boards across the state.
There's multiple things the commissioners
Staying
need to
with
keep
the
our
corner.
eye on, yeah, so there's
Corner.
multiple initiatives that have been proposed, that we definitely need to keep, that you guys need to keep abreast of, because it could significantly change some of the operations.
So I have the email from Zach.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. So
It was
he's,
like
well,
70
look at me,
now.
I'm putting on my sunglasses. I thought these were my readers.
Of course, he was waiting for the other two phases. I think the one
This
phase,
was the OE. The Ohio Edison one, he is requesting $12,608.
Right.
It's 80%, 12,608 total equals 20%.
Okay.
So the total is 63,040 of that. He needs 12,608 to finalize the Ohio Edison easement. The Norfolk Southern is not ready yet
right. So he needs 12,608
for next week,
for the
potential.
Ohio,
Yeah, Ohio Edison.
where do we take that from?
It's a good question. I think that's what he was.
He's
Here's the problem.
He's like, he's the think tank over there.
Here's what we have to look at. We're gonna see an increase in industry here, which is gonna bring new jobs, new families here. And, you know, I think we're gonna have to look at, you know, the bike trail. It's really gonna be used more and more every year. We're gonna grow this county, and I think we're gonna grow the county, so. I know we don't have the money up front, but we're gonna have to find it because. We're gonna need it, especially with housing. We're gonna do housing in the county, we're gonna bring an industry into the county. So
Well, you know, Kimberly Clark liked it. I mean, part of the reason why.
everybody likes it.
One, I understand that, but part of what was said, at least to me, was that Kimberly Clark actually loved the
And he never
idea.
said a word about it. We talked to the guy from
I
Kimberly
know,
Clark. He doesn't
but-
even know anything about the bike trail, saying
Yeah,
yes
but
or no.
that's-
We had dinner with him.
that's
And the
him.
Port Authority said the
That's-
same thing.
But that's
So
him.
Zach said, they said they like it, but the two people in charge said they don't know anything about it. So
Well-
he wasn't speaking on behalf of any authority. I sat there and asked him directly.
I have a
I
question.
spoke with the Port Authority about it. They knew about it. They knew
The-
about the bike trail. They're the ones who agreed to split it off initially. This was 5 years ago.
They knew that that was an
Telling you
issue,
what I
that was
heard.
part of it, but as far as them
I don't know
liking
about
that to be part of, we like this location because there's a
Well-
bike trail.
No,
was not-
No, not because of that. It's just that they did like the fact that
And when we took our tour the other day, he even said we had to move the bike trail over here, we got the fence here, this has to come, we had to make them move it off over to this side. There wasn't like it was a positive, great thing that they were gonna be
But he
bordering their
did, but he
fence.
did know it was there. Chuck knew it was
He knew it
there.
was there.
So,
I mean, we
Julie,
did.
I was here 5 years ago, so I know exactly what happened. I'm sorry, I have to clear this up. We had the right-of-way certification completed for that section of the bike trail. I mean, these things take forever because you're dealing with state and federal money. When we learned that this new multinational company was going to potentially come in, we didn't know who it was. We just knew that they were looking at this site. We made sure that the commissioners agreed to pay the extra money to re-engineer the right-of-way to make sure that that site was the size and the acreage that was needed to be able to facilitate this type of mega project. So, and the Port Authority was involved in that as well. And so I'm not saying that they moved here because of that. I'm
No.
saying that we facilitate, the Metro Parks worked with the commissioners and the Port Authority to facilitate it, to make sure that we maintained this mega site to be able to facilitate Kimberly Clark to come.
And another way to say what they told us was they knew a bike trail through the center of the property, no company was gonna take it. We had to move the bike trail to make the property attractive to anybody. Because nobody was gonna buy a property with a bike trail right through the center of it, which would have split the property in half. So they moved it for that reason.
Yeah.
The bottom line
It's
still
been
is, we're
good
gonna pay
community
money, but we're gonna have to pay $1,034,000 back if we don't complete the bike trail. The bottom line is, where are we taking the money from?
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. It's
And,
gonna,
and either we're gonna commit
Forget
to a
about all
bike
the-
trail or we're not gonna.
yeah.
And we're this far in, how can you say no now?
If we take it, I said, we got the contingency fund here, it's 12,000, we take it out of the $300,000 commissioners contingency fund, of which we've taken about $130,000 out already. Of the
Well,
300,000.
I mean, we have to take it from somewhere. I
So
don't.
technically, we got $167,000 left in the contingency fund.
Where else you gonna take it?
Take it from the credits.
Thank the clerk.
I mean, we have to stay committed to this.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have an issue with that.
But we do
Put
need
that on the agenda.
to see some form of a 2, 5, 10-year maintenance plan with this thing too, or grant money coming in, because we are gonna face. I mean, it already needs this parts of Champion where the bike trail's horrible right now, where it is crumbling, where they've got,
Yeah.
police tape around holes and stuff so people don't fall off the bike trail and it
No,
doesn't
that's true.
collapse and crumble anymore.
Julie, is there money from the Department of Natural Resources for
So
this?
maintenance throughout all grant programs is typically not an eligible activity, maintenance. Any types of new improvements or reconstruction is usually what they focus on. But at the same time, I don't know how much research has been done on this. I can't speak to the Metro Parks. But I can tell you that typically throughout all the grants that we've written, they don't like maintenance. They don't want to fund maintenance. The reason why is what I've been told by the state agencies is that's your responsibility as a local government. to
Well, this
maintain.
bike trail starts in Ashtabula and goes down and ends in Columbia.
Correct.
All 4 of those counties are in Lake to River right now. And they have the Lake to River contingency of state reps and senators that have their own caucus. And if we need to make that a priority with the caucus, maybe that all 4 of your counties are involved, you guys need to figure out how we're gonna redo this bike trail when it needs done. It shouldn't be on the county's backs. The state wanted this bike trail. The state told us to do it. The state enticed us to do it with grant money. Now the state needs to come forth now with the support of the Lake to River caucus to repave this thing and do maintenance as it needs done over the course of its lifetime.
That could be something, a policy level change in the state.
Easily. And they got the ODNR, they got Earthworks, they got the Nature Works grants. There's a lot of different things that this fits in nicely. I would think that it fits in nicely. If you're gonna have it and enhance it, they've done enhancement projects on state parks and other things. I don't know how ODNR ties in with this or not, but I know like Champion right now is putting in for a Nature Works project or something. I'm sure this parallels it somehow. It's gotta be a cousin of the bike trail somehow.
Not necessarily.
Well, we just gotta make sure we look for the money, that's all. But,
Yeah, I do. And, to be fair, again, Zach is one person. He has secured several $1 million in grants, including the local required match for phase 4. And obviously a limited budget to maintain the 4,000 acres. I think it's 4,000 acres in our Metro Park system. And so, having limited resources is a challenge.
And he
For
has
everybody.
that Trumbull County Tourism. He has been utilizing the funding that's allocated through the Commissioner's General Fund every year to work on that maintenance. He has worked with the Sheriff's Department to do the, what's it called, hog brushing.
Yes.
He does what he can with the resources. I would only put an exclamation point on the bike trail for residents specifically. And that the Western Reserve Greenway is a really important quality of life issue. We do have people call, we've been, just this spring, we have invested I don't even know, maybe it's $3,000 or $4,000 in marketing the Western Reserve Greenway from Ashtabula all the way down, specifically to visitors that are coming in. Last year, I had 3 people walk into our office saying, we didn't know about the bike trail. And we came from Ashtabula, we're overnighting here at the Best Western, we're checking out Warren. We do have anecdotal stories about people that are utilizing that and then going and branching out.
We have also, because he hasn't had the funding, and I understand that Vicky is paying for them this year, but we've also had calls in past years, 3 and 4 years ago, where he didn't have the money for porta potties.
Right.
It's hard for us to promote something like this that is so great for the community without the basic infrastructure that we need for porta potties at the Sunside trailhead or up at the top where we're just crossing over in Ashtabula County.
Right.
I think younger people that we're trying to attract to Trumbull County are looking for bike trails. They're looking for those younger things. Just activities to do in our county, and that's one of the things that we're promoting, so.
And they've had traffic counts at the various Sunside trailheads, and I think there's 3 trailheads actually. And it numbers over 100,000 visitors a year. They've done just license plate surveys. They counted it on one day, probably over 20 different states. So it does draw people from outside, and it does bring money into our county, for sure. And I know, it's something that's been in the works since 1988, really.
Okay, so my question to you, Julie, is, so we need $12,000 out of this fund
For now.
for now, and we need that tomorrow, because what do we have, a week to do this?
I don't know if he needs it tomorrow or not. It's just securing an easement with Ohio Edison, so I would imagine that they could wait another week if they had to. But if you could add it to the agenda tomorrow, that would be great too. I don't know.
Well, I
if he
think we
needs it.
could, if you would work with Lisa on it.
Yeah.
Get the language there.
Yeah.
Why wait?
Lisa's gone for the rest of the day today?
Oh, Lisa's on, well.
I can go in the back and help you. Not a problem.
Yeah,
Not a problem.
so you want 12,000 out of there?
12,608. Exactly.
Yeah. if you
Julie,
don't-
is that the final? I've heard
Yep,
of.
that's for Ohio Edison only. So Norfolk Southern isn't ready yet because, as you know, railroads are a little bit more lengthy.
So there's going to be another.
There's gonna be
request.
another request, correct.
And that'll be in the 40s, 50s.
Well,
I'll tell you what.
maybe by
right-
then we
I think we're total 70 down.
can secure something.
The 20%
no.
is 20, of the Norfolk Southern is 27,64960. So that's the second one.
Is there going to be another request?
No, these are the last easements required. And then once the right of way is secured, they finalize the right of way certification through the ODOT local let process. That's the end before you do your competitive bidding. Then once it goes out for bid, hopefully we get good bids to build it. And the $500,000 that we have existing for that local match will be sufficient to match the CMAQ. So we have CMAQ money here covering 80%, and then the $500,000 from the state capital, but no. One of the state grants, I can't remember which one, Clean Ohio, I think.
And that one's already
And
set
that was
aside
the
as
one
well.
that I worked with you to get.
Right,
to
that's the
save.
500,000, right?
Yeah,
That's already set aside.
that's already set aside.
And I think we need to clarify all that, for this 12,000, what are we actually getting? We're getting a lot for it.
12,608. Well, I can give you the breakdown of what you've paid for since the beginning. I have that.
And maybe.
It's less
tomorrow.
than, I can tell you, it's less than 3% of the total was paid for with local county government funds. But I can bring that spreadsheet too.
You looking for that motion?
I don't know. It's only been 3 hours. No, I was looking for a motion. Do you have anything else?
That's
No?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second.
Mr. Bernard.
Yes.
Mr. Malloy.
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez.
Yes. Thank you.